A sect named the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion came into view. Demon Monarch Wanjan froze for a second, then flipped through the Taking Grand Province sect list. Spotting the last line, he laughed, haha. It's a new sect founded just a month ago. Its predecessor was a tiny scrap of a sect with only a one, aperture nascent soul. This result unsettled the other venerables. Why did Demon Monarch Wanjan get so lucky? Demon Monarch Wanjan smirked sarcastically. I really envy you all. Your disciples have the Three Spirits sect and the 7 great cults protecting them. Unlike my 2 poor pupils, who can barely survive the ancient battlefield, yet still have to babysit a deadweight. This comment made the out-of-province venerables even more annoyed, and worse, it started affecting their disciples' morale. They were all entering the ancient battlefield, but Demon Monarch Wanjan's disciples were clearly going to rake in more loot. How could they be okay with that? Master Zixio had to calm his disciples down. A gentleman should be like bamboo, thriving in good times and unyielding in the bad. In limited circumstances, you must do your best to get the best result. Don't let your will falter. Both disciples bowed in agreement. The other venerables followed suit, counseling their own students to keep them from getting discouraged and ruining their exploration of the ancient battlefield. Only Vice Palace Master Yu rubbed his nose, turned to his dejected disciples, and said, "If you feel mistreated, I'll talk to Demon Monarch Wanjan and swap sects with him no matter the cost. You can follow the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion instead." Hearing this, the 2 disciples shuddered. No, we don't want the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. The Tay insect is actually pretty great. They had watched Fang Chen's exploits in the Heaven Realm with their master. To put it simply, his raw power didn't scare them, but his schemes and terrifying calculations were burned into their memories. Fang Chen was the guy who tricked and killed the Space Giant King and teamed up with the 4, crowned Shura King right in front of the 5, Star Giant King. If they followed him, he'd probably sell them off without them even knowing. Hell, they'd probably help him count the money afterward. Compared to that, staying with the Tay insect was way safer. Vice Palace Master, you looked at the gloating Demon Monarch Wanjan with pity, trying to play tricks in front of the Grand Libationer. The Grand Libationer just handed him a living nightmare. Sensing Vice Palace Master Yu's gaze, Demon Monarch Wanjan looked over with a mocking grin. What's the matter, Vice Palace Master Yu? Don't tell me you want to swap sects with me. Vice Palace Master Yu laughed, the wrinkles on his face deepening. No, I don't have that intention at all. Demon Monarch Wanjan chuckled. Good, this cost me all my luck. I wouldn't trade it for all the gold in the world, haha. Just then the array ahead rippled. Another sect from the Taking Grand Province had arrived. As figures emerged, someone from the Sanctuary of Myriad Tribulations recognized them. It's the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Demon Monarch Wanjan looked over and smiled. My pupils, why don't you go introduce yourselves to your partners from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion? But a moment later, his smile froze on his face. Over a dozen nascent soul experts and demon emperors from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion appeared on the array all at once. Leading them were 2 nascent soul experts standing side by side. On the left was a refined middle-aged man, the master of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. On the right was none other than Fang Chen. Demon Monarch Wanjan blinked and checked the Taking Grand Province sect registry again to find the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion's entry. He was right, a sect founded just a month ago with only the Pavilion Master at the nascent soul realm. So what was this? Not only were there 15 nascent soul experts, but one was even a 7, Aperture Demon Emperor. Fine, whatever, but what was the deal with Fang Chen? How was he part of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion? Recalling how Fang Chen had systematically tricked and killed the Space Giant King, a chill ran down his spine. There was no way his 2 disciples could handle Fang Chen. Following him, they wouldn't even know how they died. Grand Libationer, I don't want the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion anymore. Let my disciples follow the 7 great cults. If that's not possible, I'll take a 3-spirit sect. Anyone but the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. The Grand Libationer replied expressionlessly, You drew that lot fair and square. How can I let you swap? He gestured to Fang Chen. Vice Pavilion Master Fang, come meet your new partners. Fang Chen heard the Grand Libationer's call from a distance and hurried over, bowing respectfully. Greetings, Grand Libationer. What do you mean by new partners? The Grand Libationer pointed at the 2 pale-faced disciples standing next to Demon Monarch Wanjan. You know these 2, right? Fang Chen was confused. Senior Wanjan's 2 disciples. The Grand Libationer nodded. Their safety in the ancient battlefield is in your hands now. Disciples from other provinces have sects protecting them. You must ensure these 2 don't fall into danger, or I'll hold you responsible. Fang Chen was incredibly sharp. He was puzzled by the first sentence, but the second immediately revealed the Grand Libationer's true intent. It was protection in name, but surveillance in reality. He looked at Demon Monarch Wanjun's disciples with a bright smile. "Senior brothers, I'm Fang Chen. Please, feel safe following me from now on." "Safe my ass, this is a death trap. Master, do I really have to go? I mean, is the Tianshan battlefield absolutely mandatory for me?" Both disciples immediately tried to back out. The out-of-province venerables, who had just been feeling slighted, suddenly felt much better. It turned out Demon Monarch Wanjun had drawn Fang Chen, that absolute monster. Now they were satisfied. Demon Monarch Wanjun's face turned dark. His own disciples were too terrified to even step into the Tianshan battlefield. With no other choice, he walked up to Fang Chen, stared at him for a moment, and forced a smile. "Fang Chen, please take good care of my two pupils. Don't let anything happen to them." He was genuinely worried Fang Chen would scheme them to death. With Fang Chen's cunning, he'd probably do it in a way that left Wanjun with no room to complain. Fang Chen frowned. "Senior Wanjun, you're putting me in a tough spot. Who knows what dangers lurk on the battlefield? I can barely protect myself with my strength, so how can I protect 2-7, Aperture Demon Emperor Seniors? I really can't make that promise." Demon Monarch Wanjun gritted his teeth and pulled out a medium-grade crystal ore, equivalent to 10 million crystal stones. Fang Chen's eyes lit up. From one low-grade crystal vein, he had refined 10 high-grade spirit crystals and 1 supreme-grade crystal. The yield from this medium-grade crystal ore should be 10 times that, if so. Whether it was the crystal stones needed for teleportation formations within taking Grand Province or the ones for inter-province travel, he'd have more than enough. "How about now?" Fang Chen quit while he was ahead, beaming as he said, "Senior Wanjun, you are far too polite. From now on, these two senior brothers are guest elders of our Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. We stand and fall together." Demon Monarch Wanjun's mouth twitched. He knew this guy was the type who never did anything without a guaranteed payoff. Wincing at the loss, he tossed the mid-grade crystal ore to Fang Chen and said, "You should get acquainted with each other." Seeing this, the two disciples felt a bit more reassured. A mid-grade crystal ore should be enough to satisfy Fang Chen, right? "I am Kaianzu, and this is my junior brother." "May I ask your Taoist name, junior brother?" The two exchanged pleasantries, wanting to address Fang Chen by his Taoist name out of respect. Fang Chen, who had been all smiles, froze instantly. This day had finally come. If someone hadn't asked, he would have almost forgotten his embarrassing Taoist name. After cycling through Master Rogue, Master Playboy, and Threes, Ekin Master, that crazy wench, the ancient saint, had finally settled on Headless Master as his Taoist name. How could he possibly say that out loud? Hearing this, everyone from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion covered their mouths and snickered. If anyone could get under Fang Chen's skin, it was the mysterious ancient saint. Any random Taoist name she gave him was enough to drive him crazy. Right now, he was experiencing a rare moment of sheer embarrassment. Hua Wang's bright eyes darted around. She leaned in close to Fairy Cloud, Raymond, and asked, full of curiosity, Sister Yunsheng, what is young Master Fang's Taoist name. She had always suspected that Fang Chen's Taoist name was just as scandalous as hers. Looking at Fang Chen's expression now, it was highly likely. She couldn't help but feel excited. Why should she be the only one losing face? If someone was going to be humiliated, she was taking Fang Chen down with her. She was the debt-repaying fairy, so Fang Chen had to be Master Scammer. Fairy Cloud, Raymond giggled, covering her mouth. Ask him yourself. I wouldn't dare say it. If she actually said it, Fang Chen would definitely lose his temper. Meanwhile, high up in the clouds, Venerable Mantra, Venerable Heart Demon, and Venerable Evil Crow had been watching everything unfold. Venerable Heart Demon stroked his chin, looking intrigued. Come to think of it, I've never heard anyone mention his Taoist name. Everyone always just called him Fang Chen. It seemed no one actually knew his Taoist name. Venerable Mantra wore a cold expression, glaring down at Fang Chen. It's bound to be something vulgar, which is why he's hiding it. It's either Master Lust or Master Joyous Union. There is no other option. Venerable Heart Demon glanced at Venerable Mantra in surprise, a strange look in his eyes. Why do you sound like Fang Chen took advantage of you or something? He pondered. My guess is it's something synonymous with being cunning or deceitful. That would suit him best. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Fang Chen endured the awkwardness for a while before clearing his throat. Without missing a beat, he said, I am Fang Chen of Taking Grand Province. Kaianzu blinked in confusion. Well, obviously. But what is your Taoist name, Junior Brother Fang? Fang Chen announced loudly, "I am Fang Chen, the Chief Deputy Pavilion Master of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion." Tianzu was speechless. "Your Taoist name. I'm asking for your Taoist name, junior brother Fang." Fang Chen continued his self-introduction regardless. "I am the divine messenger of the Bodhisattva of Taking Grand Province, business partner of Venerable Mantra, and the personal translator of Venerable Heart Demon. Yes, that is I, Fang Chen." His strategy was simple. You ask your questions, I'll give my answers. Tianzu opened his mouth, then closed it. Forget it. High in the clouds, Venerable Mantra's eyes gleamed. "Think you can hide your Taoist name from us?" With a flick of her finger, her mantra domain silently enveloped Fang Chen. To make matters worse, Demon Monarch Wanjun, wanting to stand up for his disciples, felt that politely asking for a Taoist name shouldn't warrant such secrecy. Fang Chen was making his disciples look quite foolish. "It's just a Taoist name. Is it really that difficult for you? Come on, spit it out. What is your Taoist name?" Fang Chen spoke up loudly once more, preparing to brush it off. "I am the Headless Master." As soon as the words left his mouth, Fang Chen knew something was wrong. That wasn't what he meant to say. He had been forced to tell the truth. This was the mantra domain. He glared at the sky, fuming. "You petty, spiteful woman." Venerable Mantra couldn't help but laugh. "Brat, so even you can be put in your place. So what if I'm petty?" She paused, then looked confused and slightly disappointed. "Master Headless, that's not much, is it? Aside from sounding a bit aggressive, there's nothing wrong with it." Why was he being so secretive? I thought I'd hear a title I could mock Fang Chen with for the rest of his life, but this is it. Hua Wang knit her brows, equally let down. "Seriously, is that supposed to be worse than mine?" Tianzu and Wang were also puzzled. Master Headless might sound a bit crude, but it's not that bad. It'll grow on people. While everyone was scratching their heads, a beautiful female disciple from another province noticed the double meaning and whispered to herself, "Headless, headless, does that mean no head on top, or no head down below?" The air suddenly went still. Every single pair of eyes shot straight toward Fang Chen's crotch. Liang Feiyan shrank back and gave a dry cough. "Hey, it wasn't me this time. Last time it was his big mouth that exposed the hidden meaning of Master Headless. This time he was innocent." After a moment of stunned silence, Venerable Mantra finally caught on. Her face turned bright red. She wanted to laugh but felt she shouldn't, so she suppressed the urge and cursed. "What a filthy title." Hua Wang's curious face was now covered in a shy, knowing grin. No wonder Fang Chen refused to say it. The title really didn't hold up to scrutiny. Tianzu looked even more apologetic, feeling a wave of guilt. He shouldn't have asked. He'd just caused Fang Chen's total social death on the spot. "Junior brother Fang, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Fang Chen's face was burning. He wanted to find a hole and crawl into it. He knew that as his fame grew, the title Master Headless would eventually get out. But he never expected it to be leaked in front of all the powerhouses of the 9 provinces. Now, the name Master Headless Fang Chen would spread throughout the 9 provinces of Middle-earth. Thinking of this, he looked toward the clouds in a rage. "You spiteful woman. You asked for this, social suicide. Ha, fine, let's all go down together. Let's see who's more embarrassed." He took a deep breath and put his hands behind his back. "That's right, I am Master Headless. And since the mantra domain is active, I'll announce another hidden identity of mine to everyone while I'm at it. As everyone knows, everything said within the mantra domain is the absolute truth." Up in the clouds, the satisfied smirk on Venerable Mantra's face froze. She suddenly had a very bad feeling. Is this guy coming for me? She tried to shut down the mantra domain immediately, but it was too late. Fang Chen stood tall, chest out, hands behind his back. "To be honest with you all, Venerable Mantra is the woman I share a bed with. She and another woman share a bed with me. The 3 of us sleep together." Those 3 sentences struck the crowd into a dead silence. Venerables, disciples, outsiders, and those from Taking Grand Province. Everyone was stunned. This wasn't just juicy gossip. It was an absolute bombshell. A legendary, beautiful female venerable sharing a husband with another woman in a threesome. What kind of god-tier drama was this? It was easy to imagine the gossip circles of the Central Plains exploding any second now. Wanjun Demon Monarch looked toward the clouds in disbelief and muttered, "I really couldn't tell. The quiet, reserved Venerable Mantra is actually that wild. You really can't judge a book by its cover." After a moment of silence in the clouds, an earth-shattering scream erupted. Venerable Mantra tore through the clouds and dove toward the ground. Her face was so red it looked like it was caked in rouge. She spoke at breakneck speed. "It's not what you think. There's been a misunderstanding." Fang Chen glared at her. "What misunderstanding? Could anything said under your mantra domain possibly be a lie?" He had been putting up with Venerable Mantra for a long time, not to mention that time she almost took him out by crashing down like a fireball. She was the one who lost her memory and kept letting him take advantage of her, only to blame him later. And now she was airing his dirty laundry. Even a saint has a breaking point. Fine, let's just blow everything up and commit social suicide together. Venerable Mantra snapped. "Shut up. Don't you dare say another word." She rushed to clarify to the crowd. "He's taking things out of context. Don't believe a word he says." Seeing her panic made Fang Chen feel a smug sense of satisfaction. He teased her. "Context or not, it's true you were naked, and we shared a bed, right? And you kept calling me my Fang. That's true too. You claimed me for yourself, and wouldn't let any other woman get close. Am I lying? If you want to clear the air, it's simple. Just deny what I just said." That was the ultimate restriction of the mantra domain. Venerable Mantra herself couldn't tell a lie while it was active. Venerable Mantra's mouth hung open, but she didn't dare deny it, because every word was the truth. Her face turned bright red with panic. "Believe me, it's all a misunderstanding. High Priest, you observe everything in Taikang. Tell them the truth." The High Priest's lip twitched. "I only watch over major world events. Why would I pay attention to your petty romantic drama?" Venerable Mantra turned to Venerable Heart Demon. "We've known each other for years. You know my character. I would never do something like this." Venerable Heart Demon rubbed his nose. "Mantra, there's no need to explain. Your domain is unique. You physically cannot lie. If you say it's a misunderstanding, then I'm sure it is. However, you didn't deny Fang Chen's claims either, which means what he said is also true. In short, you and Fang Chen definitely slept together, even if it was just a misunderstanding." Realization dawned on the crowd, and the way they looked at Venerable Mantra completely shifted. Regardless of whether it was a misunderstanding, the gossip was out. Venerable Mantra had shared a bed with Fang Chen and a husband with another woman. In an instant, the room erupted into a cacophony of whispers. Venerable Mantra's face burned with shame. She was losing her mind. She cursed the day she ever decided to mess with Fang Chen. Now she dragged herself down into the mud with him. She wasn't going to be the only one humiliated today. Her eyes darted around, and she discreetly activated her mantra domain, enveloping the entire area. Then she announced loudly, "Everyone, surely you all have secrets you'd rather die than tell, right?" The moment he heard her question, Fang Chen expertly clamped his hand over his mouth to stay silent. Venerable Heart Demon, Venerable Evil Crow, and the High Priest were all smart enough to keep their mouths shut too. Silence was the only defense against the mantra domain, because once you opened your mouth, only the absolute truth would come out. Those unfamiliar with Venerable Mantra were about to have a very bad time. The venerables from other provinces were more than happy to enjoy a laugh at the Taking Grand Province's expense. Demon Monarch Wanjun scoffed internally. "I'd have to be insane to tell you my dirty laundry." He intended to say, with a sarcastic sneer, that his province didn't have such messy scandals. Instead, he found himself blurting out, "I once accidentally entered my sister in law's room and spent a scandalous night with her." "That's not what I meant to say. Don't believe me. This is all—" Vice Palace Master Yu stared in shock, then burst out laughing. She was about to mock Demon Monarch Wanjun for his forbidden cravings. But as soon as she opened her mouth, she couldn't stop herself. "I once mistook a pile of demonic beast dung for a rare herb and brewed it into a spirit pill. When someone found out, I refused to admit it and stubbornly swallowed the whole spirit pill myself just to hide the evidence. No one ever knew." Vice Palace Master, you realized what she'd done and let out a blood-curdling shriek. "Why did I say that? Don't listen, it's all—" Just like Demon Monarch Wanjun, under the influence of the mantra domain, they couldn't even manage to lie and call their confessions fake. The other venerables from outside provinces paled and covered their mouths, cold sweat dripping down their foreheads. The skeletons in their closets were even worse than those of Demon Monarch Wanjun and Vice Palace Master Yu. If those secrets got out, they might as well die on the spot. When they looked at Venerable Mantra again, their eyes were filled with pure terror. They all scrambled backward, desperate to get as far away from Venerable Mantra as possible. At this moment, Venerable Mantra seemed even more terrifying in their eyes than a sage. A sage could only destroy their physical bodies, but Venerable Mantra could make them cringe all the way to the palace of Yama. Aside from the two venerables, many nascent soul realm cultivators were also exposing their own embarrassing secrets. The sound of collective toe curling echoed through the crowd, with some particularly embarrassing confessions sounding exceptionally loud. Fang Chen was actually worried he might curl his toes so hard they would dig right through the earth and into the infernal realm. He finally understood why the Five Elements Giant Emperor had considered Venerable Mantra to be the greatest threat. Her domain didn't seem destructive, but when used right, it was absolutely lethal. Listening to everyone's socially self-destruct one by one, Venerable Mantra smirked, looking smug. Now that everyone was socially ruined, she didn't seem so out of place. The Grand Libationer waved his sleeve, casually dispersing the domain. He chuckled, of all the people to mess with, you just had to provoke Venerable Mantra. Letting that slide, now that everyone was here, they prepared to enter the Tianshan battlefield. Before we enter, I have 3 warnings for you. Everyone pretended as if nothing had happened, their faces flushed red with embarrassment as they forced themselves to look calmly at the Grand Libationer. Thus, the commotion caused by a Taoist title finally came to a temporary close. The Grand Libationer said, first, be cautious and careful. Although this is a battlefield from 1,000 years ago, things that are fatal to the nascent soul realm still remain. If you encounter any living person from 1,000 years ago, stay far away immediately. Under the crushing wheels of 1,000 years of time, no living soul is destined to survive. Do not cross the black line in the center of the battlefield. That is a forbidden zone, and anyone who enters will surely die. Even a soul transformation venerable is no exception. He had thought it would just be standard rules like forbidding and fighting, but the more Fang Chen listened, the more alarmed he became. The first rule warned of danger, which was expected and not surprising. But what did he mean by living people? How could there be living people in an ancient battlefield that had been dead for 1,000 years? Could that so-called forbidden zone be the very place where the great sage and the giant emperor perished together? That giant emperor is right inside the forbidden zone. You only have 1 day inside. Once time is up, the seal will close again. If you fail to exit in time and get trapped inside, you will have to bear the consequences. Fang Chen looked at the ancient mountain range ahead, its dark silhouettes stretching across the horizon. He took a deep breath. Searching for fortuitous opportunities was one thing, but he wanted to know even more about how the battle between both sides actually played out 1,000 years ago. A question had always lingered in his mind when the ancient giants descended 1,000 years ago, and over 90% of all living beings died in the Great Tribulation. How did the Taking Grand Province manage to turn the tide and win? On this point, history had only a vague and brief record. The myriad races of the Taking Grand Province achieved a grand victory. How they won and how the ancient giants were defeated and driven away was not mentioned at all. Now, the answer might just be found in the Tianshan battlefield. Having delivered his warnings, the Grand Libationer raised his eyes to look at the Tianshan mountains stretching for thousands of miles. He murmured with deep emotion, the land stretches out like a painting for thousands of miles, while the loyal souls weep like a tragic song. Everyone, if you encounter the ancestors of our Taking, take only what you need and do not disturb their peace. The simple instructions carried an unspeakable sorrow. It was as if he had personally witnessed the tragic and heroic scenes of that year. Recalling the disciples of the 9 sects who had died tragically while resisting the undead army on Boundary Mountain, Fang Chen felt a stir in his heart and said, "This junior understands." The cultivators of the various sects paid their respects in their hearts. The 1,000 years of peace in the Central Plains had been bought with flesh and blood and must not be desecrated. Only Venerable Evil Crow glanced indifferently at the ancient battlefield, his eyes filled with nothing but greed. For other sects, the ancient battlefield was merely a place to search for ancient scriptures, treasures, and spiritual artifacts. But for the Great Yin sect, those well-preserved corpses were their greatest resource. Though they had been dead for a long time, and the strength of the refined Yin corpses would be greatly reduced. They couldn't ignore the fact that the peerless masters who died there were incredibly powerful. If refined into Yin corpses, their strength would still be highly formidable. He cast a glance at the sect master of the Great Yin sect, and an indifferent voice resonated in the latter's mind. "Do you remember my instructions?" The sect master of the Great Yin sect nodded. Before they set off, Venerable Evil Crow had instructed him on 2 matters. First, go to the westernmost edge of the Tianshan Mountains. A venerable from the Great Yin sect fell there 1,000 years ago. Find his remains. Second, collect as many powerful remains as possible. whether they belong to ancient giants or the various races of taking. Third, find an opportunity to kill Fang Chen. The Grand Libationer wants to protect Fang Chen, so naturally, Venerable Evil Crow won't touch him, at least not openly. But in the shadows, who would ever know? The Tianshan battlefield is a death trap. It would be perfectly normal for Fang Chen to meet a sudden, violent end there. Venerable Heart Demon pulled out several origin sources and handed them to the Palace Lord of the Sanctuary of Myriad Tribulations. Your priority is keeping yourself and the 8 Aperture disciples safe. Gathering resources comes second. The Palace Lord took the origin sources and replied, understood. The Sanctuary of Myriad Tribulations had brought 5-8 Aperture, nascent soul experts this time, more than enough to handle almost any trouble. Venerable Mantra landed in front of a silent, head, bowed young man. It was Master Chenjing. Once you're inside, don't overextend yourself, just do your best. Master Chenjing kept his head down, his expression unreadable. Yes, Venerable. Venerable Mantra paused for a moment, then let out a soft sigh. Before, Master Chenjing had always called her Master. Now he only addressed her by her title. The sight of her and her daughter both serving the same man had been a massive blow to Master Chenjing's psyche. Thinking of this, her eyes filled with regret. If you can't snap out of this, it's my failure as your master. Venerables from other provinces and various sect masters were all giving final instructions to their disciples. Fang Chen had no one to advise him, but he was curious sects of all sizes had arrived, yet the White Horse Temple was nowhere to be seen. Grand Libationer, where is the White Horse Temple? Fang Chen asked, surprised. The Grand Libationer gave a meaningful look. The White Horse Temple is dealing with some trouble right now. They don't have the energy for anything else. Such a massive, fortuitous opportunity. For the White Horse Temple to pass this up, how much trouble could they be in? Could it have something to do with Vajra Fayan? Just as he was about to dig deeper, the massive seal over the Tianshan Mountains vanished completely. The ancient battlefield was open. Before the Grand Libationer could announce their entry, a wheezing sob echoed from within the battlefield, like the cry of a ghost in a deserted mountain temple at midnight. The eerie, chilling atmosphere seeped into everyone's pores, sending shivers down their spines. Fang Chen got goosebumps. He remembered the living people the Grand Libationer had mentioned. Was someone actually alive in a place that had been sealed and dead for 1,000 years? The Grand Libationer narrowed his aged eyes. Take care of yourselves. The ancient battlefield is officially open. Whoosh, the Godspeed Sect reacted first. Having spent centuries raiding tombs, an ancient battlefield was their natural playground. Following them, the Tay, Insect, and the 7 great cults moved out, with the disciples of various venerables entering one after another. Fang Chen didn't waste time either, leading the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion into the fray, followed by the smaller sects. He wasn't sure if it was his imagination, but as soon as Fang Chen stepped onto the battlefield, he felt a gaze full of deep malice. When he spun around to look, the hostility vanished instantly. The culprit was hidden among the hundreds of nascent soul experts, making them impossible to pinpoint. What's wrong? Yu Mingzhu asked, appearing at Fang Chen's side with a look of concern. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes. Among these smaller sects, there's a nascent soul expert with a serious grudge against me. If it were the Tay, Insect, Mount Sanking, or the Godspeed Sect, he wouldn't be surprised. He had history with all of them. But he had never offended these smaller sects. The level of hatred coming from them was bizarre. Yu Mingzhu shrugged. You're surrounded by beauties all the time. If I were a man, I'd hate you even more than he does. Fang Chen scanned the crowd. These people clawed their way to the nascent soul realm. They wouldn't harbor such intense malice over simple jealousy. It has to be an old enemy. He searched the area, but the enemy was gone, and the other sects were already deep in the battlefield. He couldn't afford to waste more time, so he let it go for now. They'd better stay out of my way, Fang Chen huffed. This mission was critical for the growth of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. He wouldn't show mercy to anyone who interfered. With that, he led the group deeper into the ancient battlefield. Within a mid-sized sect called the Star Palace, the sect master, a woman in a starlit purple gown with the power of a 5 Aperture nascent soul, watched Fang Chen's back with cold, mysterious eyes and a devious smirk. Fang Chen, of all the places to go, you chose the Tianshan battlefield. You've walked right into hell. Since you're so eager to die, I'll make sure there's nothing left of you. A trace of pure Yin Kai flickered in its eyes. There weren't many beings in the Central Plains world with such pure Yin Kai, and only one had a blood feud with Fang Chen, the hellish, desolate beast. After escaping Fang Chen's pursuit, it had changed its skin, devouring the palace master of the Star Palace, and taking her form to sneak onto the Tianshan battlefield. It watched Fang Chen disappear, then turned its gaze toward the heart of the Tianshan Mountains. 100-mile-wide gap had been blasted into the range when a great sage of the human race self detonated, and the giant king was trapped right there. I plan to resurrect a giant king to break you out, but now I'll have to do it myself. Taking Grand Province, prepare to face the wrath of an ancient emperor from 1,000 years ago. Meanwhile, Fang Chen led the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion across the seal. The clash of weapons and faint, echoing roars swept over them, riding on a wave of stagnant, decaying air. Even after 1,000 years, the bloodlust of the battlefield lingered, a testament to how devastating the ancient clash must have been. Suddenly, Fang Chen's head swam, a clear sign of poisoning. The battlefield had been sealed for too long. Toxic fumes from the ancient carnage had evaporated into the stagnant air, accumulating into a deadly miasma that could even bring down a nascent soul expert. Looking around at the other sects that had rushed in, only those from the Godspeed Sect, Insect, Sanctuary of Myriad Tribulations, and Fire Worship Cult were holding up. The rest were suffering from similar symptoms, their disciples groaning in pain, with some already collapsing to the ground. Fang Chen felt a chill. What a lethal toxin! Without a way to counter this poison, any sect will be completely paralyzed. They'll have no choice but to retreat outside the seal and wait for the fresh air to dilute this miasma. But with the air poisoned for thousands of miles, it'll take at least half a day to clear. By then, the unaffected sects will have already picked the place clean. Qianzu and Wying exchanged a glance, their eyes gleaming. This was a golden opportunity. S7, Aperture Demon Emperors of the Yao clan, their physical constitutions far surpassed ordinary cultivators. This level of poison barely affected them, giving them the perfect chance to slip away from Fang Chen. Qianzu's eyes flickered as he said, "Junior brother Fang, you all don't look so well. Why don't you head back outside first? As your allies, the two of us can scout ahead for you." Fang Chen cast a sidelong glance at them. He quietly activated his poison core, absorbing every drop of the toxin in his system. The dark hue on his face faded, his dizziness vanished, and he returned to peak condition in an instant. He exhaled a breath of black, toxic mist, and turned to look at the group from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. A poison this potent would surely be too much for most of them. Sure enough, only Huenquen, who cultivated the path of fire, and the master of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion, who mastered lightning, were unaffected. The others were stumbling, their faces pale or turning purple with dizziness. "Wait, how is Xia Keoj completely fine?" Fang Chen glanced at her, puzzled. He had never heard of her cultivating lightning or fire-based cultivation methods, so why was she unaffected? Xia Keoj realized her mistake when she noticed everyone else struggling. Standing out like this would blow her cover. She absolutely could not let Fang Chen find out she cultivated the yin-yang heaven, otherwise he would realize she had spied on him in the lightning pool. She immediately rubbed her temples, putting on a convincing show of being lightheaded. Fang Chen's suspicion deepened. Was Xia Keoj's reaction time really that slow? But there was no time to dwell on it. He decisively activated the heart of the heavenly abyss, unleashing the lightning energy he had stored inside. He channeled the lightning into everyone's bodies, purging the toxins that had invaded their systems. At the same time, the lightning energy expanded into a protective barrier spanning 100 yards, instantly vaporizing the toxic mist within it. "Stay within the lightning barrier," Fang Chen commanded. Fang Chen watched as numerous sects were forced to retreat, his expression grim. The mere air of this ancient battlefield was enough to turn back most sects. The dangers lurking ahead were bound to be terrifying. The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion had to make the most of this golden opportunity. "Which way should we go? The Tianshan Mountains span thousands of miles. They say fortuitous opportunities are everywhere, but we still need a clear direction." A flash of 9-colored light shimmered in Yu Mingju's eyes as she raised a finger, pointing toward the northeastern corner of the Tianshan Mountains. Through her vision, the entire Tianshan Mountains were overflowing with massive providence. Any single spot here would spark a bloody war in the outside world over such a massive fortuitous opportunity. Spoiled for choice, she decided they should go after the ones with the most potent providence first. Fang Chen gave her a surprised look, but chose to trust her judgment. When the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion group arrived at the foot of the massive mountain, they were greeted by the corpses of 9 ancient giants, each standing between 100 to nearly 300 feet tall. Based on Fang Chen's experience, these were all 9 aperture giants. They lay collapsed on the ground, arranged in a neat circle. In the center of that circle sat the skeleton of a member of the human race. His flesh had long since decayed, leaving only a skeletal frame. His hands gripped a blood, red saber, its tip dug into the ground to prop up his skeletal remains, keeping him standing upright. As Fang Chen and the others approached, the shifting air stirred a gentle breeze, causing his decayed clothing to dissolve into dust. Only the blood, red saber, and his unyielding battle frame remained standing. Awakens studied the remains and remarked, he was a nigh, aperture nascent soul from the human race. Fang Chen followed his gaze and noticed that portions of the bones had a translucent, jade-like sheen, a clear sign of nearing soul transformation. A 9, aperture nascent soul, he must have completely succumbed to madness. 1,000 years ago, the taking Grand Province deployed them to the front lines. They must have been pushed to an absolute desperate brink to resort to using unstable 9, aperture nascent souls. Fang Chen murmured softly, a single drop reveals the ocean. This shows just how hopeless that ancient war truly was. Fairy Cloud, Raymond stepped forward to examine the remains of the 9 ancient giants, noticing that their skulls had all been pulverized by immense force. How strange, every single one of them died from the exact same injury. Fang Chen noticed it too. Soon he spotted a caved-in palm print on the crown of one giant's skull. It was the ancient giant's own handprint. Looking back at the standing skeleton of the human race warrior with his blood, red saber, Fang Chen understood. Before he died, this 9, aperture nascent soul senior must have somehow transmitted his own madness to the ancient giants. His madness drove the ancient giants insane, forcing them to take their own lives. A look of realization crossed Awakens' face. He looked Fang Chen over and said, "You're a pretty sharp guesser." This person was a demon cultivator. They must have followed the path of heart tempering, drowning in their own agony while dragging their enemies down with them. Those 9 ancient giants couldn't bear the torment in their own minds and ended their own lives. Fang Chen was stunned. That path is brutally self-destructive. To force an early awakening, they subject themselves to absolute agony, breaking through their cocoon to achieve a godlike rebirth. Our Central Plains madness state isn't entirely a curse, after all. Fang Chen muttered softly. Across the Central Plains, the Infernal Realm and the Heaven Realm. Only cultivators from the Central Plains face the horrific threat of demonic possession once they reach the 8, aperture nascent soul realm. Fang Chen had once thought this was like shooting themselves in the foot when fighting the ancient giants. With their strongest 9, aperture nascent soul warriors crippled by this condition, the already disadvantaged Central Plains had an even harder time holding their own against the Heaven Realm. But now a 9, aperture nascent soul cultivator in the madness state seemed terrifyingly powerful, capable of taking down 9 ancient giants of the same rank single-handedly. Of course, Awakens said, eyes drifting into memory, our Central Plains madness is a profound state. The Infernal Realm and the Heaven Realm can only dream of having something like it. Once a cultivator goes mad, they wield a domain second only to a venerable. It's unpredictable, profound, and incredibly lethal. My master once said the Central Plains only won because of the madness state engineered by the ancient saints. Fang Chen was awestruck. He hadn't realized the Central Plains cultivation system was designed by the ancient saints. It was all to temporarily boost the power of their top nascent soul experts when it mattered most. Thinking about it, handling a typical 7 aperture nascent soul was no longer a challenge for Fang Chenx, including outliers like those from Mount Sanking and the Giant family. But facing an 8 aperture nascent soul in the madness state was a different story. Setting aside their cultivation realm and cultivation method, the sheer contagiousness of their madness could drag him into the same dangerous insanity. Song Lingyu's madness, for instance, had nearly driven Fang Chen to end his own life on the spot. The mere thought of it sent chills down his spine. And the madness of a 9 aperture nascent soul would be leagues beyond Song Lingyu's, who from the Infernal Realm or the Heaven Realm wouldn't be terrified to face one. The 9 slaughtered 9 aperture giants before him were proof enough. In their final moments, they had been dragged straight to the grave by a single mad 9 aperture nascent soul cultivator from the Central Plains. That blood saber, it's a high-grade spirit tool. Yu Mingzhu cried out in surprise. Snapping back to reality, Fang Chen stared at the weapon. It hadn't decayed a bit in 1,000 years, still radiating a powerful spiritual pressure. His eyes widened. It really is a blood saber. How had Yu Mingzhu managed to sense such a high-tier treasure from 100 miles away? A surge of excitement hit him. He wanted to take it for himself. But looking at the remains, standing tall even in death by leaning on the blade, he hesitated. If he took the weapon, the corpse would collapse. Where would that leave his predecessor's dignity? Liang Feiyan was practically vibrating with excitement. Junior brother Fang, what are you waiting for? That's a high-grade spirit tool. Even if none of us use sabers, selling it would get us an astronomical amount of resources. There are barely any high-grade spirit tools in the entire Taking Grand Province. Fang Chen sighed softly. Forget it. Since none of us can use it, why desecrate a predecessor's resting place just to take it? And what if we take it by force? Let it stay with him, standing watch over the generations to come. Liang Feiyan's smile faded, replaced by a solemn nod. You're right. With the ancient giants on our doorstep, what's the use of carrying around a weapon none of us can even wield? Though the disciples of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion felt a twinge of regret, they refused to disturb a fallen hero and began to step back. Suddenly, a barbed wire rope shot through the air like lightning, wrapping tightly around the hilt of the blood saber. Fang Chen followed the wire back to its source. A group of cultivators in Godspeed Sect robes had trailed them all the way here. At their head was an elder with corpse spots covering his face. He was an 8-aperture nascent soul cultivator, and his eyes were wide with pure, feverish greed. Before Fang Chen could utter a word of warning, the elder yanked the rope, ripping the saber from the skeleton's grip. Stop, Fang Chen barked, but he was too late. Deprived of its support, the skeleton that had stood proud for 1,000 years collapsed. Its ancient weathered bones were far too fragile to survive the sudden jolt. Aside from a few crystallized fragments, the entire skeleton crumbled into dust, scattering in the wind. Disgust welled up inside Fang Chen. A hero who had survived an army of giants had been reduced to ash by the greed of his own descendants. He glared at the spotted elder. The high priest warned us not to disturb them. Why didn't you listen? But the old man was too busy caressing the saber, completely ignoring Fang Chen. The Godspeed Sect Master and several 8-aperture nascent soul experts stepped in front of the old man, shielding him in case Fang Chen tried to take the weapon. Wearing a wide bamboo hat, the Godspeed Sect Master glared at Fang Chen. A smug, petty look of revenge flashed in his eyes. It belongs to a dead man. Why shouldn't we put it to use? Or are you just bitter because we beat you to it? The Godspeed Sect had poured countless resources into nurturing Song Kayas-heng, one of the 18 scions of Taking, only for him to be slaughtered by the space giant king. If Fang Chen had only lifted a finger to save him, Song Kayas-heng would still be alive. The Godspeed Sect Master didn't dare hold a grudge against the giant king, but he had no such reservations about Fang Chen. Fang Chen's expression darkened, his disgust for the Godspeed Sect's actions deepening. Back then, to secretly excavate the tomb of the Earth Phoenix Great Sage, they had slaughtered countless mainland Yao clan members and murdered so many of Gong Kei's disciples. The Godspeed Sect was the sole reason Gong Kei hadn't been able to accompany him to Taking Grand Province. As he debated how to snatch back the blood blade, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence without warning. The corpse of Cest Elder gripped the blood blade, his face twisted in absolute agony as he roared endlessly at the sky. His features scrunched together in a grotesque mask of torment. Veins bulged across his skin, and his thick neck flushed a deep red. Driven mad by the agonizing pain, his eyes slowly bled into a feral crimson. Finally, under the horrified gazes of the Godspeed Sect, he raised the blood blade and hacked off his own head. The gruesome sight happened so fast that everyone froze in utter shock. An 8-aperture nascent soul expert had suddenly gone insane and severed his own head. The blood blade clattered to the ground. The nearest 3-aperture nascent soul elder rushed forward to snatch it up. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, he suffered the exact same fate as the corpse Cest Elder. He thrashed in excruciating agony before raising the blade and decapitating himself. No one else dared touch the blood blade. The message was loud and clear. Whoever touched it died. Fang Chen instantly understood that demonic path ancestor had poured their entire Tao into the blood blade. To touch it was to face its brutal heart refining test. Those lacking sheer willpower would end up just like the 9-aperture giants, driven to a painful suicide. Seizing the opening, Fang Chen flicked his sleeve, sweeping the blood blade toward himself. Having learned from the Godspeed Sect's fatal blunder, he didn't dare touch it with his bare hands, opting instead to toss it straight into a spatial storage artifact. The Godspeed Sect had desecrated the martyr's corpse. There was no way he'd let the blood blade fall into their filthy hands. The Godspeed Sect Master finally snapped out of his daze, growling with deadly intent, "You have a death wish." They had just sacrificed a precious 8-aperture nascent soul and a 3-aperture nascent soul expert for that blade, only for Fang Chen to snatch it away. Who could possibly swallow that kind of insult? Rumble, a deafening thunderclap shattered the air, shaking the earth. Everyone whipped their heads toward the sound, looking up at the mountain's peak. An aperture nascent soul from the sanctuary of myriad tribulations was unleashing the tyrannical ripples of an imperishable domain, radiating outward in devastating waves. The Godspeed Sect master's face fell as he barked. The sanctuary of myriad tribulations has found a Deity Transformation realm corpse. Senior Golden Hook, finish them off, the rest of you, with me. A Deity Transformation realm corpse was an unimaginable prize. Any stray artifact found on it would be a top-tier treasure. If it could survive a millennium of erosion, it was bound to be extraordinary. Swish, swish, swish. The Godspeed Sect members scattered in a flash. Only one person remained, a hunched old man sporting a goatee, a felt hat, and gaunt, bloodless cheeks. He stared apathetically at Fang Chen. You don't match your rumors. Word is you were incredibly resourceful in the heaven realm, yet seeing you today, you're nothing but a fool. Knowing a terrifying foe stands before you, you still choose to throw an egg against a boulder. It's an absolute miracle you managed to return from the heaven realm alive. It's a pity about my sect's monstrous heavens chosen, Song Kiasheng. He was 100 times the cultivator you are, yet he fell up there. Hands clasped behind his back, he took a slow, deliberate step toward Fang Chen. Fang Chen just shook his head slightly. An egg against a boulder. You seem awfully confident that you're the boulder. With that black stone carving housing a strike from the soul, refining Venerable, the Godspeed Sect absolutely wouldn't dare act out of line. But against a single aperture nascent soul, Fang Chen wouldn't even need to waste the stone carving. The goateed elder's bloodless face remained utterly impassive. Fine, have it your way. It's just a shame your sect will be dragged down with you. Taking in a disciple like you was the worst luck they've had in 8 lifetimes. With that said, he stomped toward Fang Chen. The terrifying might of an aperture nascent soul bore down on him like a raging tidal wave. Huangquan narrowed his eyes. Kid, you really have a knack for stirring up trouble. That's an aperture nascent soul. He had already warned Fang Chen about the pure, terrifying power of a nascent soul. Cultivators of this cultivation realm were extremely lethal. Provoking them was practically suicide. But of course, Fang Chen was too stubborn to listen. I have my own ways of dealing with this. Watching the goateed elder advance, Fang Chen's gaze turned frosty as the golden snake sigil between his brows began to throb. Whoosh, the phantom of a tiny snake sparked like a crack of lightning, darting straight into the goateed elder's body and instantly suppressing his soul. Mid-stride, the goateed elder dropped like a stone, face planting into the dirt. His eyes glazed over, reducing him to nothing more than a lifeless husk. At that exact moment, Fang Chen established a telepathic link with the golden snake phantom now embedded in the man's soul. With a single thought from Fang Chen, the goateed elder stood up. He marched over to Fang Chen with an expressionless face, his hollow, unblinking eyes proving his consciousness had been entirely wiped out. Fang Chen, what on earth? The master of the heavenly secret pavilion gasped in shock. An aperture nascent soul, subdued just like that. Fang Chen let out a breath, saying casually, if the corpse refining domain couldn't control the soul, refining Venerable, did you really think it couldn't handle a mere aperture nascent soul? Empty your pockets, give me everything. With a single command, the goateed elder began patting himself down. He quickly pulled out a spatial storage artifact. With dull glazed eyes, the goateed elder muttered an incantation, and the spatial storage artifact sprang open instantly. A flicker of pleasant surprise crossed Fang Chen's face. This was leagues above Wu Manyu's corpse, refining arts, and the great Yin sect's Yin corpses. It could actually force a victim to unlock their own spatial storage artifact. This was Fang Chen's first time looting the spatial storage artifact of an aperture nascent soul expert. He buzzed with anticipation at the sheer haul of treasure that awaited inside. The first thing that caught his eye was a mountain of mid-grade crystal ore. This pile of crystal ore alone made burning a use of his golden snake tattoo entirely worth it. Next was a bottle of heaven, soaring pills, only 5 though. With a stroke of luck, this could produce another nascent soul realm powerhouse for the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. After that came several relics scavenged from the ancient battlefield. Though battered and broken, they still held decent value. Finally, he found a few bottles of dark green spirit pills. He uncorked one and took a sniff, instantly realizing what they were: antidote pills. The Godspeed Sect spent their days raiding ancient tombs, meaning toxic traps were practically a daily hazard. It was only natural they'd carry these spirit pills, and it was precisely how they managed to run rampant across the ancient battlefield. He immediately poured them out, tossing a pill to every member of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion present. With the antidotes, he wouldn't need to waste his thunder force fighting off miasma. Turning his attention back to the goateed elder, Fang Chen's eyes gleamed. "What's your name?" The goateed elder mumbled robotically, "Lord Golden Hook." Fang Chen nodded. "Lord Golden Hook, head back to the Godspeed Sect. Tell your sect master that the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion has been wiped out. You will lay low among them and await my command." Without a word, Lord Golden Hook shot into the sky and departed. The master of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion frowned with worry. Is it really safe to just let him go? Distance degrades the effects of the corpse, refining arts. "We just need to tail him," Fang Chen replied. "Distance does weaken the control." That's exactly what happened with the soul, refining Venerable. The moment he slipped out of sight, I lost my connection to him. The group immediately gave chase, eventually arriving at the epicenter of the violent domain fluctuations. From a distance, they spotted a female corpse encased in crimson armor, her face startlingly lifelike, embedded deep into a stone wall. It looked as though some unfathomable, crushing force had snuffed out her life in a single instant. Around her embedded corpse, an all-out brawl had broken out between the Sanctuary of Myriad Tribulations and the Godspeed Sect. Relying on their lightning divine abilities, the Sanctuary of Myriad Tribulations had been running roughshod over the battlefield. Arrogant, they had scattered their forces into small squads of 10, each led by an 8, aperture, nascent soul expert. Scattered, they were no match for the Godspeed Sect. After barely a dozen exchanges, the Sanctuary of Myriad Tribulations was forced to bitterly abandon the female corpse and retreat. The Godspeed Sect Master grinned viciously. "A Deity Transformation Realm corpse, and it falls into our laps this easily." Just then, Lord Golden Hook returned to their ranks. The Sect Master immediately asked, "Senior Golden Hook, what's their status?" Lord Golden Hook's face remained utterly blank, slaughtered to the last. The Godspeed Sect Master wasn't surprised in the slightest. Faced with the overwhelming, absolute power of an 8, aperture nascent soul, the pathetic nascent soul scrubs of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion never stood a chance. With that handled, the Blood Blade was finally back in their possession. And now they had secured a Deity Transformation Realm corpse, one that could somehow still project a domain. It was practically a miracle. She had been dead for 1,000 years, yet retained such power that only made her exponentially more valuable. If we can successfully refine this corpse, our Godspeed Sect will officially have a Venerable holding down the fort. "Dig her out of there," he barked. The elders immediately got to work, chiseling away at the stone wall. Watching the scene unfold from afar, the members of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion harbored no desire to disrespect the dead woman's remains. However, her hands were still fiercely gripping a small banner, an item that was undeniably extraordinary. What's more, the crimson armor she wore hadn't degraded an inch after a millennia. It had to be a defensive magical artifact at the spiritual artifact tier. A shame the Godspeed Sect was about to walk away with the entire jackpot. Yu Mingzhu, however, knitted her brows in deep unease. There is something very wrong with that corpse. Through her eyes, this sight wasn't radiating with surging providence. In fact, it was the exact terrifying opposite. Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat, a cold dread pooling in his gut. He was already thinking of falling back. It was strange enough that the corpse was perfectly preserved, but the fact that it could still project a domain, that was simply unnatural. Decisively, he signaled the group to retreat. Not long after they slipped away, the Godspeed Sect finished breaking open the rock face, hauling the Deity Transformation Realm corpse out from the stone. Staring down at her flawless, beautiful features, a face that looked no older than 18 or 19, the Godspeed Sect Master couldn't hide his utter disbelief. To reach the Venerable Realm at such a young age, 1,000 years ago, she must have been a peerless beauty who took the world by storm. Yet here she was, withered away and reduced to a wandering wraith. The Godspeed Sect Master pinched her cheek. Her skin was still soft, supple, and shockingly warm. "Wait," the Godspeed Sect Master jerked his hand back as if he'd been burned, his face pale with shock. "She's not dead." A perfectly preserved corpse made sense. A Venerable's physical form was practically indestructible, and sealed away like this, it wouldn't decay. But for her to still have body heat, impossible. He remembered the High Priest's grave warning: if they saw anyone breathing, they needed to run. There were no living souls on this battlefield. A bead of cold sweat slid down his forehead. Then his heart, and the hearts of every Godspeed Sect disciple present, stopped. The dead woman slowly opened her eyes. The Godspeed Sect is literally speed, running natural selection. First, they desecrate a war hero's skeleton for a shiny saber, only to watch their own elders immediately commit involuntary decapitation. But did they learn? Absolutely not. The Grand Libationer explicitly warned everyone to run from living souls. Yet the Godspeed Sect Master finds a warm, 1,000-year-old female venerable and decides to pinch her cheek like they're on a first date. Well, she just opened her eyes, and this entire clown show is officially cooked. Is the Godspeed Sect's instant karma weldies served for desecrating a martyr? Or is Fang Chen the true villain here for manipulating his brainwashed puppet to let them walk straight into a meat grinder? The female corpse's eyes slowly snapped open. The Godspeed Sect Master's heart skipped a beat, hit by a sickening wave of weightlessness as if he'd just stepped off a cliff. The female venerable's gaze was cold and detached. With neither malice nor intent, she looked at the Godspeed Sect Master like a god staring at an inanimate object. Drenched in cold sweat under her stare, the Godspeed Sect Master froze, paralyzed by fear. He'd raided countless tombs and seen many corpses rise, but those were usually just evil spirits hijacking a body. This was different. There was a conscious mind behind those eyes, a high and mighty consciousness looking down on all living things. Seeing their leader in trouble, the other members of the Godspeed Sect were filled with righteous indignation. "Sect Master, we'll avenge you. You'll always be our Sect Master." Hurling their farewells over their shoulders, they bolted without hesitation. As a faction of tomb raiders driven solely by profit, loyalty was non-existent, dying for their leader. Not happening. The Godspeed Sect Master's face turned green. Better the leader dies than the disciples. Real classy, guys. Their movement caught the female venerable's attention. With a slight glance, a strange domain locked down the world. The fleeing Godspeed Sect warriors instantly lost their cultivation, plummeting from the sky and slamming hard into the earth. Even the female venerable lost her cultivation. Clearly, her domain suppressed everyone's power, including her own. But even without cultivation, her body was still that of a venerable. She could still absolutely crush a nascent soul realm expert. She flicked a finger, and a drop of essence blood shot out, turning into a crimson thread that easily pierced the Godspeed Sect Master's abdomen. Then, like a needle and thread, it instantly skewered all the Godspeed Sect experts. With a tug of her finger, the agonizing disciples were strung together like human kebabs and dragged before her. In an instant, every nascent soul expert from the Godspeed Sect was caught in her net. The female venerable stepped out of her stone casket and looked toward the center of the Tianshan mountains. There lay a 100-mile-wide gap, the site where a central plains great sage and a heaven-realm giant king had perished together. Like a pilgrim, she bowed deeply toward the forbidden zone before dragging the Godspeed Sect members toward it. Guided by Yu Mingzhu, they arrived at a valley. A fierce battle had once raged here. The surrounding peaks were leveled with 1,000-foot sword gouges and terrifying cracks from spiked clubs scarring the mountainsides. 630 metered. All ancient giants and over 30 mangled skeletons of the human race were scattered throughout the valley. It looked like a brutal clash between ordinary ancient giants and human race experts in the early to mid stages of the nascent soul realm. Fang Chen's eyes dimmed. 6 to 30, such a staggering casualty rate, it's heartbreaking. How did the human race even win 1,000 years ago? Sensing the ripples of several spiritual artifacts and even the aura of heavenly treasures, Fang Chen said, "Search for anything useful, but do not disturb the remains of our Central Plains ancestors." As for the ancient giants, Fang Chen flew over and checked the pouches at their waists, emptying the contents. They were filled with the remains of experts from Taking Grand Province, who had been dead for ages. After 1,000 years, they were finally released from those bloody bags. Clang, a pristine moon-white longsword glowing with a holy light dropped out. A spirit sword. Fang Chen's heart raced. Could it be a high-grade spirit tool? I could master the Great Dayan sword array, but he was disappointed to find it was only a mid-grade spirit sword. The hilt was engraved with Mingxin, and its elegant design suggested it was a woman's weapon. Holding the sword, Fang Chen felt a wave of overwhelming righteousness wash over him. The aura was so pure, it filled him with a deep sense of shame. He thought of Gong Kei, the second woman in his life, to whom he had given no official status. He thought of Liu Ruxu, the woman who had stayed by his side since he was a nobody, yet he hadn't given her his exclusive love. He thought of all the schemes he'd orchestrated along the way. Suddenly, he couldn't even hold the sword. It slipped from his hand and hit the ground. Fang Chen managed a bitter smile. The owner of this sword must be someone truly honorable. It's not for me. Fang Chen wasn't a villain. He could even be called a good man, but he was far from honorable. Of the people he knew, only two fit that description: Zhang Wuya, who fought evil to promote good, and Beixin. I'll give it to Bakeson. Consider it a return for her gifting me the 7-star sword back then. Fang Chen tucked the Mingxin sword into a jade casket. Then he released several bursts of netherworld ghost fire to burn the remains of the ancient giants. Yu Mingzhu tilted her head. They're just bones. Are you afraid they'll come back to life? Fang Chen shook his head. No. I just don't want their remains fouling the soil of the Central Plains or disturbing the peace of our heroic spirits. Yu Mingzhu watched him, seeing a shadow of the young man who fought during the Great War between the Yao clan and the human race. Time and experience had stripped away his youthful naivety, but that sincere heart hidden beneath his cunning remained as clear and captivating as a polished mirror. She stepped forward, lightly took Fang Chen's arm, and rested her head on his shoulder. Fang Chen glanced at her, puzzled. Aren't you going to look for a fortuitous opportunity? Everyone else has already found something. Yu Mingzhu shook her head slightly with a knowing smile. No need. I already found the greatest fortuitous opportunity of my life long ago. Meeting him at the Lingshan, Cliff must have used up every bit of providence she had. Fang Chen scratched his head. A woman's mind was a complete mystery. Soon the others began returning one by one. Fairy Cloud Raymond had the best luck, finding a natural treasure that could further enhance her heavenly fox bloodline. Fang Chen's eyelid twitched. It had taken so much effort to resist her charms as his cultivation rose, but now that her heavenly fox bloodline was getting a boost, he was going to get sucked right back in. The master of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion also fared well, discovering a high-tier Earth-grade cultivation technique from a millennium ago. It was powerful enough to rival the secret arts of the great divine sects, and could serve as the founding technique for the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Beyond that, Yi Banksia and Hua Wang found some immortal elixirs that could boost the chances of opening apertures. The rest of the group all had their own gains as well. Fang Chen nodded, satisfied with the results. At this rate, everyone in the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion would leave with their hands full by the end of the day. It's all on you now. Yu Mingzhu nodded happily. This was her most fulfilling moment, since following Fang Chen to the Taking Grand Province, she could finally be of use to him. With her ability to perceive world providence, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion was in their element on the battlefield. While other sects were wandering blindly like headless flies, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion had already scoured one treasure-filled legacy site after another. While they were reaping massive rewards, the hellish desolate beast, also known as the Palace Master of the Stars, stood at the center of a dense mist. Within the mist, the skeletal remains of over a dozen ancient giants knelt in a circle. Their skulls each bore a single hole, showing they had been executed by a piercing blow. Their blood had drained through these holes into a depression at the center of the circle. 1,000 years later, the blood had dried into black sludge, yet a faint aura still lingered deep beneath the mud. The hellish desolate beast grinned, finally found a living giant king. He produced a bottle of true spirit blood and poured it into the depression. The moment the blood hit the ground, it vanished, absorbed by some unknown entity. A voice filled with intense hunger drifted up from deep underground. Give it to me, I want more. The hellish desolate beast chuckled. I'll give it to you, but you have to do 2 things for me: rescue the undying giant emperor and kill a member of the human race. The voice from the depths didn't hesitate long before responding. Half a day later, as the toxins cleared from the battlefield air, the various sects were finally free to flood in. The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion could no longer loot the battlefield resources as freely as before. Inside the tent of an ancient giant, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion crossed paths with the group from the Supreme Rivers and Mountains Tower. Leading the team was the Tower Lord of Jiangshan Yipin. He was accompanied by Vice Pavilion Master Gu Zinner and several mysterious guest elders at the nascent Soul Realm. Fang Chen realized they were acquaintances. Both sides tacitly avoided conflict, each searching their own areas. Once the looting was done, the Tower Lord of Jiangshan Yipin stepped forward, curious. The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion must have made a killing these past few hours, right? Fang Chen chuckled and held out his hand, want to find out. The Tower Lord of Jiangshan Yipin laughed in spite of himself. He never thought he'd see the day someone stole his lines. I'll stop asking. Instead, I'll give you a free tip. Mount Sanking brought a 9. Aperture Nascent Soul. Fang Chen's brow furrowed. Is Mount Sanking insane? If a 9, Aperture Nascent Soul went on a rampage, even the 8 Aperture Nascent Souls brought by the other sects wouldn't stand a chance. When a 9 Aperture Nascent Soul from the Giant family made a move back then, a dozen 8 Aperture Nascent Souls couldn't even pin him down. 2 or 3 of them were killed instead. Can Mount Sanking even control such a dangerous entity? The Tower Lord of Junction Yipin said, "It's strictly for deterrence. They won't use it unless they're desperate. If you run into them, stay as far away as possible." With that, he turned and left. Fang Chen watched his retreating back, lost in thought. The Tower Lord of Junction Yipin's intel is terrifying. Mount Sanking likely brought that 9 aperture nascent soul as a secret weapon and wouldn't leak a word, yet he knows everything. Cough, cough, cough. Gu Zinner coughed deliberately in front of him, trying to catch his attention. Seeing his gaze shift her way, Gu Zinner puffed out her chest, showing it off to Fang Chen with a smug gleam in her eyes. Her look practically screamed, "Let's see if you still call them a mere handful now." Fang Chen found it secretly amusing. He had noticed long ago, was there really a need to keep showing off? He shot her a casual glance, but that single look made his expression turn strange again. He couldn't help but mutter inwardly, how are they even bigger? In just a single day since they were at the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, Gu Zinner's chest had noticeably grown again. The buttons on her short-sleeved top were strained to the limit, looking like they might pop off at any second. After her little display, Gu Zinner didn't forget to throw some sarcastic shade. As the saying goes, 3 days is enough to completely transform a person. Someone was terribly short, sighted back then. Bet you're regretting it now. Ha. Ha ha ha, she laughed out loud, skipping away with a joyful bounce in her step. Fang Chen was left completely speechless. What do I have to regret? Besides, you're growing way too fast. Are you sure you don't have a medical issue? Right at that moment, thick waves of mist suddenly rolled across the massive battlefield. The silhouettes of Gu Zinner, the people from Supreme Rivers and Mountains Tower, and the others were quickly swallowed by the haze. Why is it getting foggy? Yu Mingzhu asked in surprise. Fang Chen's guard went up. Feeling the mist growing thicker by the second, he ordered, "Huddle up, right now. Something dangerous might be approaching." The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion members, who had been scavenging for resources nearby, scrambled and rushed over to Fang Chen. Eerily, almost the moment he spoke, the fog became so dense you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. He couldn't even see Yu Mingzhu standing right beside him. Reaching out, he barely brushed Yu Mingzhu's shoulder and said gravely, "This isn't normal fog. It might be a fog origin source." What kind of mist can blind a 5 aperture nascent soul existence? It has to be an origin source. With a flick of his finger, he summoned his fire origin. The surrounding fog instantly shattered under the light, revealing their surroundings within a 20 yang radius. The faint firelight pierced the haze, acting as a beacon for the lost members of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Drawn by the light, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion group quickly regrouped. Once he confirmed no one was left behind, Fang Chen turned to Yu Mingzhu. "Can you still spot any blessed lands?" She was already one step ahead. Yu Mingzhu had activated her ocular technique to trace the providence of heaven and earth. Finding her vision unaffected, she said decisively, "Follow me." She had spotted a location where the providence was exceptionally robust. Providence could ward off danger. The place with the strongest providence would be the safest haven. They arrived at a massive fissure in the earth. With flawless precision, Yu Mingzhu led the group down into its deepest depths. Illuminated by the firelight, the scene within the 20 yang radius fell into everyone's view. It was an entire patch of mushrooms, each the size of a human head. The mushrooms were entirely translucent, looking as if they were carved from crystal. What made Fang Chen's pupils shrink was the astonishing soul energy pulsing within them. Eating just one would tangibly strengthen a person's soul. If he ate enough of them, his soul power could reach the level of a 7 aperture nascent soul. The others noticed the miraculous nature of the mushrooms too, immediately pulling out tools to harvest them. Fang Chen joined in, rapidly gathering the harvest. However, just as they finished stripping the 20 yang illuminated area bare, several silhouettes unexpectedly pierced through the thick mist, stepping directly into the light of the fire origin. Clad in Taoist robes and carrying the lingering scent of medicinal pills, who else could it be but Mount Sanking? The leader was an elderly 7 aperture nascent soul cultivator. Wearing a feathered crown and a 7-star robe, carrying a horsetail whisk over his arm, he was dressed exactly like the sect leader of Sanking Mountain. The old man narrowed his eyes, zeroing in on the fire origin in Fang Chen's hand. At first, his pupils constricted in fear, thinking he had stumbled across a venerable. But after taking a good look at Fang Chen, surprise washed over his face. Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Thanks to the Heaven Realm, projections from Fang Chen's perspective slowly circulating among the major sects of the Taking Grand Province. His name had already sent shockwaves throughout the region. Anyone with half a brain had gathered intel on him. Naturally, his appearance was no longer a secret. Thus, the old man instantly recognized Fang Chen, the rapidly rising heavens chosen of taking. Greed glinted in the old man's eyes. The fire origin was the domain of a soul transformation venerable. Long-term benefits aside, right now it could burn through this eerie fog, allowing them to finally see their surroundings. He swept his gaze over the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion members behind Fang Chen, pausing only briefly on Huanquan before dropping all pretense of hiding his greed. I am the new sect leader of Sanking Mountain. Greetings, Vice Pavilion Master Fang. This humble Taoist would like to ask to borrow something from you. I ask that you do me a favor. How could Fang Chen miss the blatant greed in the man's eyes? Mount Sanking had always struck him as insatiably greedy, a stereotype they never failed to live up to. The old Dao head was like this, and the new Dao head was even worse. This fog is hiding something deadly. Is it really wise to be thinking about murder and robbery right now? Fang Chen asked bluntly, instantly exposing the malicious intentions of the sect leader of Sanking Mountain. The sect leader of Sanking Mountain narrowed his old eyes to slits, a flicker of calculation crossing his gaze. Fang Chen made perfect sense. This bizarre fog couldn't even be pierced by the 8 aperture nascent soul masters they brought with them. It was deeply unnatural and undoubtedly hid unknown, perilous threats. Now was definitely not the time to be picking fights. The problem was, with the fire origin, while everyone else was forced to sit blindly in place, Mount Sanking could use it to keep exploring the battlefield. Weighing the risks against the rewards, the sect leader of Sanking Mountain chose the latter. He waved his horsetail whisk and gave a raspy chuckle. Vice Pavilion Master Fang must be joking. This Dao head simply wishes to borrow something. Once I'm done, I'll naturally return it. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes. And what if I don't lend it? The sect leader of Sanking Mountain chuckled. When Mount Sanking wants to borrow something, saying no isn't an option. As soon as he spoke, a rush of movement erupted 60 meters away. The disciples of Mount Sanking were rapidly closing in on the faint firelight. Fang Chen shook his head. He pulled out the ancient giant's burlap sack, turned to the crowd from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, and said, "Sorry to put you through this, but get in. You Mingzhu, you stay." The master of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion glanced at the fire origin in Fang Chen's hand, understood immediately, and leaped into the burlap sack. The others followed suit. Only Huanquan stood with his arms crossed over his chest, muttering, "If I go in, you'll be a dead man." Hearing the footsteps rapidly approaching, Fang Chen didn't waste any more words. He grabbed Yu Mingzhu's hand and extinguished the fire origin. The surroundings instantly plunged back into pitch-black fog, so dark they couldn't see their own hands. You people from Mount Sanking really have no idea what you're up against. Without the light from his fire origin, they couldn't even see where Fang Chen was, let alone steal his fire origin. The sect leader of Sanking Mountain's expression darkened as he barked, "Lock down the perimeter. Don't let him escape." In this darkness, he didn't dare order his people to strike to kill. If they accidentally hit one of their own, it would be a disaster. But locking down the area was easier said than done. Blinded by the fog, any divine abilities and precious techniques they unleashed were bound to have gaps. In an instant, various divine abilities and precious techniques lit up the darkness haphazardly. "Why are you trapping me? Move over that way. Watch out, you bumped into me." Chaos erupted. Meanwhile, Fang Chen casually crouched down. Relying on his memory, he harvested almost all the mushrooms in the dark. He then felt his way through the messy perimeter lines, found a gap in their lock, and slipped right through. Having already activated his silent Zen, Fang Chen used his divine sense to speak to Yu Mingzhu. "Let them chase their own tails here. We're going somewhere else." Yu Mingzhu snorted. "Those hypocrites from Mount Sanking, why don't we take advantage of the chaos and kill a few?" Fang Chen replied, "Killing them is easy, but I'd rather see them die fighting the ancient giants. Dying here would be a waste of manpower, and it would insult the memory of the heroes who sacrificed themselves in this place." "Fine, I'll listen to you, husband. Let's go," Yu Mingzhu said, but just as her voice faded from his mind, a blood-curdling shriek echoed through the chasm. A powerhouse from Mount Sanking had been killed. "What happened? What's going on?" The sect leader of Sanking Mountain asked in alarm. Did someone get hit by friendly fire? The scream cut off abruptly. In its place came a wet, sickening crunching sound. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The rift fell dead silent. Everyone listened to the bizarre, eerie noise, their skin crawling. What is that?" Then a cold wind blew past, carrying a heavy, metallic scent of blood. It brushed against their faces, filling them with absolute dread. Though they couldn't see anything, a horrific image flashed in their minds, a monstrous, bloody mouth devouring the nascent soul of a Mount Sanking cultivator. A terrified shriek shattered the silence, followed by the sound of rushing wind as Mount-Sanking disciples scrambled to flee for their lives. "What is wrapping around me? Let me go!" But soon, one panicked scream after another rang out as, one by one, they fell victim to a massive, bloody maw. Horrified, the new sect leader of Sanking Mountain roared, "What monster is this? We are Mount Sanking, begone at once." Only more screams answered him. The entity hiding in the fog was completely unaffected by the gloom, pinpointing and hunting down every single target with lethal precision. Hearing more of his disciples dying by the second, the new sect leader of Sanking Mountain panicked. Forgetting all about stealing Fang Chen's fire origin, he screamed, "Vice Pavilion Master Fang, light up the area, quick, or we'll all die." Fang Chen glanced toward the source of the voice and said coldly, "The only ones dying are those of you who can't find your way out." With Yu Mingzhu guiding him, he had absolutely nothing to fear. Seeing Fang Chen about to leave, the new sect leader of Sanking Mountain gritted his teeth. "We'll give you all the mushrooms we harvested here. The spatial storage artifact is in my hand. The command word is all belongs to me." Fang Chen's eyes flickered. After a brief pause, he nodded, "Deal." "Throw it toward my voice." A sharp whistling sound immediately cut through the air. Fang Chen caught the item, tracking its trajectory through the rushing wind. He spoke the command word to open the spatial storage artifact. Peering inside, a mountain of mushrooms met his eyes. He was genuinely surprised. They must have harvested 70 to 80% of all the mushrooms in the entire chasm. Delighted, he kept his end of the bargain, summoning the fire origin to illuminate the area. With a common enemy before them, he needed to set aside their grudges for now to deal with the unknown terror. But the moment the light pierced 60 meters into the darkness, Fang Chen's pupils shrunk. At the very edge of the light, a colossal head loomed in the shadows, its massive, bloody mouth chewing on the corpse of a Mount-Sanking powerhouse. Blood coated its razor-sharp teeth, gleaming with a terrifying, ghastly sheen under the firelight. Sensing the light, it grinned, thrusting its head forward to reveal its true face. It was none other than the Giant King, a monstrous creature with a single massive eye and a white source star glowing on its forehead. The sect leader of Sanking Mountain and his remaining powerhouses froze in sheer terror, their eyes wide and their hair standing on end. Even as a projection on the crystal, the Giant King's oppressive aura had been overwhelming. Only by facing the Giant King in person did they realize that a mere projection could never capture the true horror of his presence. Standing before a true Giant King, they forgot how to breathe. The icy dread of death paralyzed them, sapping away even the strength to run. Only Fang Chen moved. Without a second thought, he retreated. The fog Giant King's eyes swiveled, locking onto Fang Chen. A mocking glint flickered in its gaze. A crimson blur suddenly shot from its maw, its grotesque tongue. It snared Fang Chen in an instant, dragging him toward its jaws with lightning speed. It had promised the hellish, desolate beast it would eat Fang Chen. There was no way it was letting its meal escape. In truth, a pathetic little bug like him never stood a chance of running away. Yet what made the monster pause was the look on his face. Dangled right before its gaping maw, Fang Chen wasn't terrified. He was dead calm. And at some point, he had uncorked a vial of black demonic liquid, gripping it tightly. Fog Giant King's heart skipped a beat as realization dawned. Did this human let himself get caught on purpose, just to land a point-blank strike? Fang Chen didn't give it time to think. He viciously smashed the prepared vial straight into the monster. According to Venerable Soul Refiner, this Xenonagon demonic potion was terrifyingly adhesive. Even a soul transformation Venerable would be completely glued if they touched it. The dark liquid splattered directly across its colossal eye. The Fog Giant King instinctively squeezed its eyes shut, but when it tried to pry them open again, its eyelids were sealed solid, glued perfectly shut. "What did you do to me?" the Fog Giant King roared in panic. Bellowing wildly, it swung its massive palm, aiming a lethal slap right at Fang Chen's head. This was the furious strike of a Giant King, something no cultivator in the nascent soul realm could ever hope to block. Worse still, Fang Chen was still hopelessly entangled in its tongue. How could he possibly break free? Just as he was about to be squashed into paste, Fang Chen slammed the fire origin in his palm directly onto the monster's tongue. Even a Giant King couldn't endure the searing heat of an origin source. Howling in pain, it instinctively thrashed its tongue, flinging Fang Chen away. That killing blow missed completely, slamming into the cavern's stone wall instead. Boom, the rock face shattered like wet tofu, pulverized into dust by the impact. Deadly shrapnel exploded outward, ruthlessly piercing through the Tao bodies of many Mount-Sanking cultivators in the nascent soul realm. Agonized screams echoed through the air, rising and falling in a gruesome chorus. Even the mere shockwave of a giant king's attack was far beyond what anyone in the nascent soul realm could withstand. Fang Chen's expression drastically changed as well. He quickly shoved Yu Mingju behind him to shield her. Summoning his wind origin essence, he whipped up a swirling vortex of air around his body, deflecting the lethal storm of flying debris. Thanks to this, the two narrowly avoided being riddled with holes. Yu Mingju's face drained of color. Is that the giant king? She asked, her eyes wide with terror. Just standing in its presence was enough to make her tremble. Fang Chen kept his gaze locked on the creature and shook his head. It's just a giant king on its last legs. It doesn't even have a tenth of its peak strength. Remembering the suffocating dread he felt when facing the space giant king and the giant king of fortune, the beast in front of them felt remarkably weak. Perhaps the Xenon Argon demonic potion would work even better than he'd hoped. The dark potion was already oozing down from the giant king's sealed eyes. Wherever it dripped, it left behind a trail of absolute, unyielding adhesion. A glint flashed in Fang Chen's eyes. If this stuff can completely immobilize it, that would be perfect. If he let the potion glue its entire body together, it would be the same as capturing a giant king alive. Whether he forged it into a yin corpse or bartered it at the Directorate of Astronomy, a live specimen was an invaluable treasure. It was worth infinitely more alive than dead. Then again, a weakened giant king was still a giant king. Fully immobilizing it wouldn't be a walk in the park. The sect leader of Sanking Mountain's eyes gleamed with a calculating light. He too had realized this giant king could actually be captured alive. Mount Sanking had already reaped countless benefits from that soul transformation demonic beast. This giant king was bound to be just as lucrative. Without hesitating, he pulled out a spatial magical artifact. After a quick incantation, an unkempt, white-haired old crone tumbled out of it. Her eyes were shut tight, looking as though she was trapped in a deep, endless slumber. Just as Fang Chen was trying to figure out what was happening, Reverend Kuani, within the spatial mirror, drew a sharp breath. "Run," he hissed frantically. "Are these lunatics insane? How could they bring that dangerous old hag here? She possesses Mount Sanking's most dangerous 9, aperture nascent soul. Once she experiences a demonic deviation, she falls into a coma and forcibly drags everyone around her into that same eternal slumber. Falling asleep anywhere else wouldn't be a death sentence. But passing out in front of the people of Mount Sanking, as a former powerhouse of their sect, Reverend Kuani knew exactly the kind of scum they were. If Fang Chen succumbed to sleep here, they wouldn't even leave behind his bones." Before Fang Chen could even react, the sect leader of Sanking Mountain tapped his finger directly against the brow of the 9, aperture nascent soul, then instantly vaulted backward in a desperate retreat. The sleeping 9, aperture nascent soul slowly stirred, and her invisible demonic aura instantly began to infect everything around her. The Mount Sanking disciples, the Sloter, Yact Huanquan, and even Yu Mingju felt their eyelids grow heavy. They stumbled and collapsed, falling into a deep, forced slumber. Even the roaring giant king of the mist began to wobble on his feet. While he didn't fall asleep like the others, the aura still worked its magic, slowing his movements to a crawl. The xenon, hydrogen demonic liquid, flowed over his body, gradually turning him into a sticky black statue. Fang Chen's own eyelids were fighting a losing battle, as well no matter how he recited the jade paper heavenly book, the drowsiness wouldn't lift. Just as he was about to faceplant, a sharp sting shot through his nascent soul. He snapped awake, tearing himself out of the forced sleep. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. That Tao is terrifying. He couldn't imagine what would have happened if he'd stayed under. The sect leader of Sanking Mountain would have likely killed him and snatched the fire origin. With that thought, Fang Chen gave a dry laugh. "Thanks for the assist, guys. I'll be taking this giant king off your hands." By now, the giant king was coated head to toe in the xenon, hydrogen demonic liquid. He was completely glued down, unable to budge. In his weakened state, there was no way he could break free from that level of stickiness. Fang Chen didn't hesitate. He whipped out a burlap sack, stuffed the giant inside, scooped up Yu Mingju, and prepared to bail. Before leaving, his eyes fell on Senior Fang the 9, aperture nascent soul expert. After her brief moment of lucidity, the madness had dragged her back into sleep. A wicked idea struck him. Her specific brand of madness was unique. Could he use her as a weapon? If he ran into a crowd of enemies, he could wake her up, toss her in, and put everyone to sleep instantly. It would be a game changer in a pinch. Reverend Xuanyi hadn't been kidding when he called her the most dangerous nine aperture nascent soul in Mount Sanking. He acted on impulse, giving the old woman a light kick and sending her tumbling into the burlap sack with the Giant King. In theory, as long as he woke her up periodically, he could keep the Giant King in a perpetual state of slumber. As the Giant King vanished into the bag, the surrounding mist began to dissipate. He couldn't afford to waste time and immediately activated his bronze grasshopper. If Mount Sanking realized they'd lost both the Giant King and their nine aperture nascent soul, they'd be screaming bloody murder. Fang Chen felt like he was forgetting something. He scanned the gray surroundings but couldn't see what was missing. Probably nothing important, he figured. Muttering to himself, he gripped the bronze grasshopper and used teleportation to jump 500 miles away. A short while later, Awakens, still face down in the mud, vaguely heard the ecstatic shouts of the sect leader of Sanking Mountain. Ha ha ha, Mount Sanking is rich. A live Giant King, this is unprecedented. The sound of rushing air followed as the sect leader arrived with a group of experts, cutting through the thinning mist with a face full of triumph. As the new Dao head of Mount Sanking, he had taken over during a crisis. The old leader was missing, and the true spirit blood and true spirit corpse had been stolen. The sect was in a panic, and they desperately needed a strong leader to steady the ship. The pressure was immense, but now, under his command, they had captured a live Giant King. This would shock the Taking Grand Province and make him famous across the central land realm. No one in Mount Sanking would dare challenge him now. But when he looked at the ground, he froze. Where was the Giant King? He was supposed to be stuck in the demonic liquid. Had he somehow found the strength to run away? The sect leader's heart sank. He'd celebrated too early. Still, he reasoned they hadn't actually lost anything. The xenon, hydrogen demonic liquid belonged to Fang Chen. Fang Chen was the one taking the massive loss. They had just inconvenienced Senior Feng a bit. Senior Feng, I'm sorry. I'll bring you back now. Wait, where is Senior Feng? The sect leader's face went pale. Mount Sanking's most powerful nine, aperture nascent soul, was gone. There was nothing but an empty space where she should have been. He blinked, looking around in a daze, wondering if he'd found the wrong spot, but as the mist cleared, it was obvious. Senior Feng was nowhere to be found. He gasped, I lost Senior Feng. Each of the 4 9 aperture nascent souls was a treasure of the sect, their only hope of birthing a venerable. And now, one was just gone. He shuddered to think what the 8 aperture nascent soul old monsters back at the sect would do. They'd tear him to pieces. Cold sweat poured down his face. Where could she have gone? A sleeping person doesn't just walk away. Someone took her. His eyes narrowed as the realization hit him. Where's Fang Chen? He should have been asleep too. Why is he gone? He packed up the Giant King and Senior Feng and took them both. The sect leader of Sanking Mountain let out a roar of pure fury. Fang Chen, you bastard. Mid-rage, he spotted something squirming on the ground. He looked closer. It was Awakens, trying to dig a hole to hide himself in. The sect leader's eyes lit up. He snatched him up and hissed, I remember you. You were willing to face all of Mount Sanking just to protect Fang Chen. You're clearly important to him. I'm sure he'll be happy to trade the Giant King and Senior Feng for your life. Awakens panicked. No. I barely know the guy. I'm not important at all. I'm just the guy he abandoned. The sect leader wasn't listening. He sneered, doesn't matter. We'll see how important you are when I start cutting off your ears and pulling out your tongue in front of him. His reaction will tell me everything. Awakens' face turned green. He yelled, I'm telling you, we aren't close. You could chop me into 81 pieces and that kid wouldn't even blink, let alone give back a Giant King and a 9 aperture nascent soul. 1,000 miles away, once he was sure they were safe, Fang Chen opened the burlap sack and let everyone out. The master of the heavenly secret pavilion looked around. Mount Sanking didn't give you any trouble. Fang Chen shrugged, not at all. They were actually quite hospitable. They even did me a huge favor. The people from the heavenly secrets pavilion frowned. What did that mean? Fang Chen didn't explain. Instead, he took a deep breath. From here on out, we need to split up. I can't stay with you anymore. Seeing the weakened Giant King of the Mist made him realize who was pulling the strings, the hellish, desolate beast. In all of Taking Grand Province, only the hellish, desolate beast could wake the Giant King, just like it did back in the East Sea Pit. The hostile intent he'd felt upon entering the battlefield, it all made sense now. It had to be the hellish, desolate beast. If he could awaken 1 Giant King, he could awaken 2, or even 3. One of the hellish, desolate beast's main goals was to take him out. If the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion group stayed with him, they would only be dragged into danger again. Their departure was inevitable. Fairy Cloud Raymond keenly realized that the Giant King from earlier had been targeting Fang Chen, which meant Fang Chen was in serious danger. So, parting her red lips, she said, "You all go ahead. I will stay and accompany my Fang." To her slight surprise, Fang Chen said, "Yunshang, you should leave with them too." A trace of worry-filled Fairy Cloud, Raymond's bright eyes, "But what about you?" Fang Chen pulled Yu Mingzhu to his side. "She'll keep me company, don't worry." Yu Mingzhu smiled happily. This meant she would have Fang Chen all to herself. He was keeping his earlier promise to spend some time with her. "It's settled then. Go quickly." Fairy Cloud Raymond looked on with envy. Reluctantly, she said goodbye and led the group away. Once the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion group had dispersed, Yu Mingzhu happily clung to Fang Chen's arm. "Where to now?" Fang Chen tapped her nose playfully. "To find the Giant King. Scared we're heading into danger." Yu Mingzhu acted as if they were just going on a scenic vacation. Yu Mingzhu nodded. "I am, but I'm more afraid of not having you by my side." Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat. He wrapped an arm around Yu Mingzhu's shoulders, silent but firm. Elsewhere, the hellish desolate beast stared at a rotting Giant King, struggling to claw its way out of the ground. A smirk played on his lips. He had found another one. The people of the Central Plains never would have dreamed that living Giant Kings still remained in this 1,000-year sealed battlefield. When he freed the Giant Emperor and led a horde of Giant Kings out of the battlefield to conquer the Taking Grand Province, what kind of faces would they make? "Foolish Central Land denizens," he muttered, "while you are quietly waiting for the ancient giants of the sky-touching Black Pillar to descend, the war has already begun." As he muttered, he sensed something and looked south, startled. His connection with the Mist Giant King had vanished. His attempt to assassinate Fang Chen had actually failed. The hellish desolate beast was momentarily stunned. Was this kid really that strong now? Then he sneered maliciously. "Fine, I'll play along with you." Half a day later, their day-long exploration was finally drawing to a close. Not only did Fang Chen avoid any further danger, but with Yu Mingzhu's help, he successfully explored many rich legacy sites, reaping massive rewards. This was especially true for the incredibly durable forging materials, which had best withstood the test of time. They found these in abundance, and every single one was a rare world-class treasure. As the 10th spatial storage artifact was filled to the brim, Yu Mingzhu smiled sweetly. "Husband, you're now rich enough to rival a divine sect." It wasn't enough to fill Fang Chen's spatial storage artifacts. He had to borrow Yu Mingzhu's as well to barely fit everything. The sheer amount of resources they gathered would leave even a Venerable dumbfounded. There was no helping it. Yu Mingzhu's Imperial Kai observation technique was simply too effective. Over the past half-day, they hadn't rested for a second, continuously plundering one blessed land after another. They had set foot in more than half of the blessed lands across this massive battlefield. It would be a miracle if they hadn't ended up with a mountain of resources. Unfortunately, Fang Chen didn't find the high-grade spirit sword he had been hoping for. Fang Chen wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "It's all thanks to you. I'll reward you when we get back." Yu Mingzhu teased, like the reward Fairy Cloud Raymond got, where she didn't leave the bed for days. "No thanks, that'll be the death of me." Fang Chen blushed. Only Yu Mingzhu would talk so boldly. Just as the atmosphere turned intimate, a sudden, deafening explosion shattered the silence. The two looked over to find a massive, fiery red mushroom cloud rising from the westernmost end of the mountain range. It looked like a violent explosion triggered by a restriction. Immediately after, a crowd of black-robed cultivators rushed into the sky in a panic, fleeing in all directions. Eerily, a streak of blood shot into the sky, skewering the fleeing black-robed cultivators like beads on a string and dragging them back down. Fang Chen watched, his expression turning grave. Aren't those cultivators from the great Yin sect? What kind of evil entity did they run into? Dozens of them, and not a single one managed to escape. The great Yin sect had brought in quite a few aperture nascent soul experts this time, yet even they couldn't escape. Yu Mingzhu's expression grew even more solemn as she watched. In her vision, the providence over that area was a pitch-black omen of impending doom, just like the female corpse excavated by the Godspeed Sect, except this was far worse. Fortunately, they were far enough away that it wouldn't affect them. "Let's get out of here," Yu Mingzhu urged in a low, serious voice. Fang Chen nodded. He had no intention of visiting a perilous place capable of wiping out an entire divine sect. "Our time is almost up anyway. Let's leave the battlefield." Holding Yu Mingzhu's hand, he activated Shadow in the clouds and dashed toward the exit of the battlefield. Though he hadn't found exactly what he wanted on this excursion, his harvest was still bountiful. It was time to go. With a single flash of shadow in the clouds, they crossed dozens of miles, leaving the 1,000-mile battlefield took only a brief moment. Fang Chen frowned after casting shadow in the clouds over a dozen times in quick succession. Yu Mingju noticed it too. She stared at the distant mountain range in confusion. Is it just me, or are we running in place? Fang Chen came to a sudden halt and looked back. The faint mushroom cloud in the distance proved his point. After that first use of shadow in the clouds, they hadn't moved an inch. What was this? An illusion? No, it wasn't an illusion. Inside his heavenly Dao heart, his lightning reserves had significantly dropped, meaning he really was casting shadow in the clouds. For some reason, he just wasn't moving. Why did you stop? The air in front of them rippled, and a 20, Zhang tall, pale, gold giant king materialized out of thin air. A black source star embedded in its forehead pulsed slowly with spatial energy. Fang Chen knew this thing all too well, the space giant king. But this one was different. It was rotting. Its body was mangled and incomplete, clearly a relic left over from 1,000 years ago. Standing on its shoulder was a woman in elegant robes, looking down at Fang Chen with a sneer. One look, and he knew exactly who it was. He snorted. What's the matter? Did Mount Sanking hunt you down so hard you had to hide in a woman's body? You're a pathetic stray dog. The hellish, desolate beast's smile vanished, his face darkening instantly. You're as insufferable as ever. It ends here. I won't give you another chance to survive. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes. Aren't you afraid this one will end up like the cold mountain giant king? The hellish, desolate beast crossed his arms and chuckled. Of course I am. That's why. He clapped his hands with a twisted grin, and 3 more powerful auras erupted from the other directions. To the north, a giant king, wreathed in black flames, stepped through the air. To the south, a giant king arrived atop a massive wave that swept across the ancient battlefield. To the west, a giant king, encrusted in ice and snow, marched forward, freezing the ground with every step. 4 giant kings surrounded them, including a space giant king, capable of locking down all movement. Even Fang Chen was shocked, despite his preparation, counting the mist giant king that made 5 of them still active. This ancient battlefield was supposed to be dead, yet it crawled with hidden threats. Fang Chen, I brought 4 giant kings just to kill you. Consider it a compliment, the hellish, desolate beast sneered. Fang Chen nodded slowly. Being hunted by 4 giant kings 1,000 years ago, that would have been one for the history books. The hellish, desolate beast snorted. As long as you know, now just lie down and die. Fang Chen shook his head. Sorry, but I'm not ready to die just yet. A faint green eye manifested on his abdomen, its gaze locking onto the space giant king. The hellish, desolate beast's eyes turned cold. I wasn't giving you a choice. Kill him. The 4 giant kings attacked simultaneously. Even with their rotting, broken bodies, each one possessed the power to crush a nascent soul realm expert. The hellish, desolate beast was leaving absolutely nothing to chance. Yu Mingju gripped Fang Chen's hand, her body trembling. Facing 4 giant kings at once, she couldn't see any way out. Fang Chen, however, looked relaxed. You were so eager to stay by my side, he joked, regretting it now. Yu Mingju shook her head. I regret not making you spend more time with me. It's hard to accept going out like this. Fang Chen gave her a warm smile. Fine, I'll make sure to spend plenty of time with you later. Hold on tight. Just before the 4 devastating attacks landed, Fang Chen activated a spatial ability, the divine abilities and precious techniques from the Space Giant King. In an instant, they were above the mushroom cloud, the Space Giant King's divine ability. The hellish, desolate beast froze, stunned by Fang Chen's move. Snapping back to reality, his face twisted. Kill him. There's no way 4 giant kings can't take down one man. The 4 giant kings lunged toward the mushroom cloud like lightning, their intent pure slaughter. Suddenly, a streak of blood shot up from the ground without warning, striking the space giant king. Startled, he activated his spatial source star, conjuring a barrier. But the blood streak tore right through the barrier and skewered the giant king's body. Then, like a lightning bolt, it pierced through the other 3, threading them all together. The blood streak didn't stop, it locked onto Fang Chen, surging toward him. Fang Chen was ready. He activated the bronze grasshopper and used teleportation to vanish from the spot. The blood streak missed. Having lost its target, it locked onto the hellish, desolate beast. The beast's face paled. What is this thing? Get away from me. 500 miles away, Fang Chen had burnt through half of his power of the nascent soul, but they had successfully escaped the blood streak's pursuit. Yu Mingju was in a daze. We made it. We escaped 4 giant kings. Fang Chen smiled faintly. I guess so. but before he could finish the sentence, his expression froze. Hundreds of nascent soul experts from various sects were racing across the sky in a blind panic, but none could escape. Countless blood streaks were erupting from the earth, snatching every nascent soul expert out of the air. No one was safe. Absolute cinema. Mount Sanking just dropped the bag of the Millennium, losing their only 9, Aperture Powerhouse, and a literal giant king because they thought they could borrow from Fang Chen. Bro really walked away with the loot, the girl, and the enemy's secret weapon like it was a grocery run. Meanwhile, the hellish desolate beast is out here playing 4D chess with 4 giant kings just to get skewered by a random blood thread. Imagine summoning the apocalypse, only to get treated like a human kebab. Fang Chen is playing a survival horror game, while everyone else is just the tutorial mob getting cooked by karma. Is Fang Chen a strategic genius for using that venerable corpse as a meat shield, or is he just the most shameless looter in cultivation history? To think he could escape an ambush by 4 giant kings, Fang Chen gave a faint smile. I guess you could say that. Before the words could fully leave his lips, his expression froze. Hundreds of nascent soul realm experts from various sects were fleeing through the sky in a panic, but none could escape. Blood, red lines shot out from every corner of the earth, hunting down every nascent soul expert in sight. Their arrival drew the attention of a crimson line that lashed out with impossible speed. Even the 4 giant kings hadn't been able to dodge it. For Fang Chen, avoiding it would be anything but easy. Sensing the danger, he had a sudden brainstorm. Since these lines reeked of soul transformation essence blood, he quickly produced a drop of his own. With a flick of his fingers, the soul transformation essence blood transformed into a long crimson thread, winding around both him and Yu Mingzhu. The incoming bloodline screeched to a halt right in front of them, seemingly confused. It hovered there, observing them for a moment, before slowly retracting. Yu Mingzhu wiped the cold sweat from her brow and stared at the crimson thread coiled around her. That actually worked, she asked, her voice trembling with lingering fear. A threat that even a giant king couldn't handle had been fooled by Fang Chen with a single drop of soul transformation essence blood. Fang Chen sent a casual soul transmission. Is this your first day knowing me? Yu Mingzhu realized he was right. What would be a wild gamble for anyone else was just business as usual for Fang Chen. She couldn't help but sigh. You always find a way to surprise people. No wonder 2 old women like me and Gong Keiyi are so smitten with a little rascal like you. Fang Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If you're going to praise me, just do it. Why do you have to roast me at the same time? He squeezed Yu Mingzhu's hand. Enough talk. We need to get out of this battlefield and report the situation to the venerables outside. The appearance of these eerie bloodlines was far beyond what anyone here could handle. The venerables had to be warned. Just as they were sneaking toward the edge of the battlefield, a bloodline, skewering several warriors, blocked their path. Fang Chen froze. He realized that every line was dragging its captives toward the center of the battlefield. Only he and Yu Mingzhu were heading the opposite way, and that had raised suspicion. Whoosh, several more bloodlines zipped over, sealing off the area and surrounding them completely. Yu Mingzhu's heart sank. What do we do? She sent a voice transmission. Fang Chen's heart grew heavy. More and more bloodlines were closing in, locking down the very fabric of reality. Even spatial teleportation was useless. Now the lines would likely intercept him mid-jump. Under the gaze of so many bloodlines, any sudden move would result in him being turned into a human kebab. After a moment's hesitation, he said grimly, "Our only choice is to follow them for now and see where this goes." He turned around immediately, pulling Yu Mingzhu along as they flew toward the center where the bloodlines were converging. The surrounding bloodlines dispersed, but one stayed behind, tailing them from a distance. If they acted out of line, it would strike. Fang Chen had no choice but to press on. Shortly after, they reached the 100-mile gap in the Heavenly Mountains, the site where a Central Plains great sage had self-detonated. Looking up, he saw a 100-mile radius of pitch black land. It wasn't scorched black by fire, it was a pure, absolute darkness. The void left behind after a piece of the world had been erased. Fang Chen's eyes widened. Could a great sage self-detonation even be called an explosion anymore? It was a total erasure of existence. Plants, insects, fish, living creatures, space, and even time itself had been wiped out without leaving a single trace. He finally understood why the Grand Libationer called this place a restricted zone. This was a dead zone for all life. Yet, in this void where even time was erased, there was a sun radiating blinding golden light. The heat was so intense that Fang Chen could barely keep his eyes open. What is that? Fang Chen thought in shock. A decaying figure reeking of death appeared behind them. It was a Central Plains Venerable who had died 1,000 years ago. The figure held a bloodline skewering several experts from the Godspeed Sect. Fang Chen felt a jolt of pure horror. He finally understood what the bloodlines were, and what the Grand Libationer meant by living people. The Venerables from a millennium ago were back from the dead. How can the dead really return to life? His mind raced with shock. The Venerable dragged the Godspeed Sect experts into the void toward the golden sun. After a few steps, he stopped and looked back at Fang Chen, gesturing for him to follow. Suppressing his shock, Fang Chen followed the Venerable into the void. As he drew closer to the golden sun, his pupils shrank to pinpricks. It was a monstrous 50-metered, all giant with skin that looked like flowing liquid gold. He was curled into a ball, arms hugging his knees and head tucked low. Fang Chen's heart hammered against his ribs. There was no mistaking who this was: the giant emperor, a giant equivalent to a great sage realm master of the human race. Even more shocking to Fang Chen was the faint, rhythmic sound of a heartbeat coming from the giant's body. The Grand Libationer was right. He's still alive. He hadn't just survived the self-detonation of a Central Plains great sage he had endured for 1,000 years without dying. If he ever left this battlefield, who could possibly stop him? Fortunately, 9 iridescent chains extended from the void, binding him within the emptiness and preventing his escape. They must have been placed by the Central Plains experts 1,000 years ago, but why not just kill him? Why leave such a dangerous threat alive? Now, many experts from different sects had been captured and were in extreme danger. Looking around, Fang Chen saw the captured experts, controlled by the undead Venerable's bloodlines, were being forced to attack the 9 iridescent chains. After 1,000 years of erosion by the void, the iridescent chains had grown dull. They were no longer as resilient as they once were, and were beginning to shatter under the constant barrage. With a deafening boom, one chain snapped. The experts who had been attacking it were sent flying by the erupting energy. Among them, a familiar figure caught his eye. It was Xia Keoj. Fang Chen's face paled. He lunged forward immediately and caught Xia Keoj. Her face was deathly white, and blood leaked from the corner of her mouth. She had been badly injured by the backlash. Keoj, what are you doing here? Xia Keoj's eyes lit up with joy when she saw it was Fang Chen, but then she turned frantic. Uncle, everyone from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion has been captured. She struggled to retrieve a jade casket, which held a feather radiating a pure, sacred aura. Uncle, Master, take this feather and run. Tell the outside world what's happening and get the Venerables here to stop the giant emperor from breaking free. If all 9 chains break, it will escape this void and leave the battlefield altogether. Fang Chen had no time to worry about a feather. He quickly fed Xia Keoj a rejuvenation pill, then spun around to look at the curled-up giant emperor, his heart hammering in his chest. Go warn the Venerables now. There was no way they would make it in time. Under the relentless attacks of the various sect experts, the 9 chains were already fragile and ready to snap at any moment. There was only one way to stop the giant emperor from awakening: prevent them from breaking the chains. Over 100 nascent soul experts were already controlled by the Crimson Threads, including even hellish desolate beasts and 4 giant kings. How could Fang Chen stop them all on his own? Another chain snapped. 2 of the 9 were now gone. The giant emperor's curled-up body gave a slight shudder. It was a clear sign that things were about to spiral out of control. Uncle, Master, why are you hesitating? Run. Xia Keoj stared at the giant emperor. For the first time, a flicker of sheer despair appeared in her normally calm eyes. This isn't a 9-aperture giant or a giant king. It's a giant emperor. It was a being that commanded the very laws of heaven and earth, its power second only to a saint. In the current Taking Grand Province, there might not be a single soul capable of matching it. Fang Chen did not leave. Instead, he stared intensely at the living Venerables controlling the crowd, his mind racing as he fell into deep thought. Xia Keoj froze, suddenly realizing, how could Fang Chen ever abandon her, Yu Mingju, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, and the living souls of the Taking Grand Province to flee on his own? Just like back at Boundary Mountain when they faced Yao Yu's undead army, he would always stand firmly in front of her. Xia Keoj's gaze softened. She put the feather away, leaned gently against his chest for a lingering moment, and then opened her eyes. With quiet determination, she said, "All right, Keoj will join you in this madness, Uncle, Master. Let's stop them from destroying the chains." She drew her sword and pointed it at the crowd of experts assaulting the chains. Yu Mingju gave Xia Keoj a knowing look, a playful smirk dancing on her lips. As sharp as she was, she easily noticed that Xia Keoj's attitude toward Fang Chen was nothing like that of a typical niece, disciple to an uncle, master. Little girl, talk of dying by Fang Chen's side is much more suited for someone like me. She drew her Tianshan silks and ran her finger along them, causing a 9-colored radiance to flow. Imbued with her Imperial Kai observation technique, these silks could harvest the providence of others. Though it would trigger a terrible backlash in the future, as the woman Fang Chen had openly acknowledged, she couldn't let herself be outdone by his little niece, disciple, could she? Sensing the subtle rivalry between the two women, Fang Chen finally snapped out of his thoughts and said seriously, "We aren't at death's door just yet, but I do need your help because things are about to get incredibly chaotic." Chaotic? The two women looked at him, utterly bewildered. The living venerables controlled so many sect experts. If they clashed, they would surely be overwhelmed. How could it possibly be a chaotic, free-for-all brawl? Fang Chen pulled out a piece of beast hide. On it was the inscription of a sage that read, "All magic dispelled." He had reasoned that these living venerables weren't actually alive in the truest sense. No one could defy life and death to resurrect spirits that had been dead for 1,000 years. Not even an ancient saint could pull off such a feat, let alone a sage. These living venerables could only be active because they were influenced by the giant emperor's origin source or some divine ability. Just as the Grand Libationer had said, there were no living souls left on this battlefield. And this sage inscription had the power to neutralize all spells. He just didn't know if it could nullify the giant emperor's influence. Right then, the unusual gathering of the trio caught the attention of the living venerables. Everyone else was desperately attacking the chains, while the three of them stood completely still, sticking out like sore thumbs. Several venerables strode over, unleashing crimson threads from their hands that shot straight toward them. Fang Chen's heart tightened. There was no time to hesitate. "It's now or never," he barked. With a sharp snap, he unfurled the beast hide. Instantly, the four powerful, calligraphed characters of All Magic Dispelled released a profound, mystical ripple that swept across the landscape. Being closest, Fang Chen, Yu Mingzhu, and Xia Keoj bore the brunt of it. They felt an invisible force pierce through them, completely neutralizing their active spells. Losing their ability to hover, they plummeted straight down. As the ripple washed over the living venerables, the divine abilities and spells maintaining them were completely dispelled. Their open eyes shut one by one, and they collapsed to the ground with dull thuds. The crimson threads, surging toward Fang Chen's group, dissolved into a bloody mist just before reaching them. At the same time, the controlled experts from the various sects finally broke free. Fang Chen was thrilled. As expected of the sage's inscription, it carried the laws of the universe, dispelling all magic. Quickly stabilizing his stance, he shouted, "Go, get out of the battlefield now." The giant emperor controlled the venerable's corpse once, and he can do it again. We have to get out of here immediately. He didn't have a second sage inscription to use. Snapped out of their daze, the crowd fled, streaking through the sky. Fang Chen also prepared to blend into the crowd and slip away. Right then, another chain snapped. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes, a cold flash of murderous intent surging within them. It was the freed hellish desolate beast. Together with the four giant kings, they were teaming up to slash through another chain. Yu Mingzhu and Xia Keoj's expressions shifted. They finally understood the absolute chaos Fang Chen had warned them about. Just because the spell was broken didn't mean everyone would choose to retreat. Some had come here specifically to free the giant emperor. Sensing Fang Chen's gaze, the hellish desolate beast turned around and grinned wickedly. "Kid, run for your life, kid, because the taking Grand Province is about to become a living hell. The first place I'll head to is the mainland. You have a lot of precious people there, don't you?" This was exactly what Fang Chen was worried about. The hellish desolate beast hadn't gone through all that trouble to steal the true spirit blood just to wake a weakened giant king. Freeing the giant emperor was its true ultimate goal. Specifically, causing absolute chaos in the taking Grand Province before the arrival of the ancient giants, thereby creating favorable conditions for their invasion. This was the hellish desolate beast's master plan, and it was about to succeed. Seeing them attack the fourth chain, a cold look washed over Fang Chen's face. Abandoning all stealth, he immediately pulled out the black stone carving and unleashed its power. A terrifying wave of energy at the Deity Transformation realm instantly erupted, thick with murderous aura. The grin on the hellish desolate beast's face froze. He gasped in utter horror. "A soul transformation venerable strike, you still have something like that?" He had calculated everything, but he never dreamed that after using up the sage's inscription, Fang Chen would immediately pull out a soul transformation strike. Was this really the same kid from the human race he had once hunted down so relentlessly? Fang Chen glared at him coldly. "I'll burn some paper and let your ghost know." Clenching his fist, he crushed the black stone carving. Torrential demonic energy surged out, forming a massive, illusory millstone. Within the millstone, countless souls were ruthlessly crushed, letting out agonizing shrieks that filled the air. It looked like a living nightmare, straight out of the legendary Avisai Hell. With a deafening rumble, the millstone descended, locking onto the hellish, desolate beast. Horrified, the beast gasped and scrambled to hide behind the 4 giant kings. Block it for me." This is a full-force strike from the Deity Transformation realm. The expressions of the 4 giant kings also changed drastically. Their bodies were battered and far from their peak. How could they possibly withstand a soul transformation strike? Whoosh, the 4 giant kings tore through the air and fled, completely discarding whether the hellish, desolate beast lived or died. Shocked and furious, the hellish, desolate beast scrambled to escape as well. But as the weakest among them, he was bound to be pinned down by the millstone first. In his desperation, he gritted his teeth and roared, "You ungrateful bastards! Since you're throwing me to the wolves, don't blame me for playing dirty." Raising his claw, a dark light radiated outward from his hand, spreading in all directions. This was the unique ability of the hellish, desolate beast, the desolate beast domain. Caught in the desolate beast domain, the 4 giant kings instantly felt like they were wading through a muddy swamp, making every step a struggle. Although his domain couldn't trap the giant kings completely, slowing them down was more than enough. Seizing the opportunity, he vaulted off the giant kings' massive bodies and fled into the distance. The pursuing millstone locked onto the 4 giant kings instead, ruthlessly pinning them down. As the millstone began to grind, the weakest ice giant king shrieked in agony. Its soul was rapidly ground into particles. In just 3 breaths of time, the ice giant king let out a final, unwilling roar. With its vertical eye staring wide, its body crashed to the ground. Its soul was completely ground to dust. The other 3 giant kings roared in agony. As their souls endured extreme torture, they would soon meet the same fate as the ice giant king. Having narrowly escaped, the hellish, desolate beast looked visibly relieved to be alive. He had almost died right alongside them. Staring at the 3 giant kings, thrashing desperately under the crushing millstone, the hellish, desolate beast's face twisted into a dark scowl. "Fang Chen, I should have killed you when I had the chance, no matter the cost." They had been so close to success, but Fang Chen, that absolute walking disaster, had completely blown his master plan to pieces. The taking experts, on the other hand, were swept up in waves of ecstatic relief. They were saved. Even better, the Central Plains had just been spared from the giant emperor's tyrannical trampling. Soon, profound envy washed over them. Just how much miraculous karma had the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion stockpiled to produce a freak like Fang Chen? If the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion survived this great tribulation brought by the ancient giants, they were destined to rise as a powerhouse sect, standing shoulder to shoulder with the 3 spirits sect and the 7 great cults. Why even wait for the future? Would any of you dare mess with the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion right now? A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Never mind the sheer number of lives Fang Chen had just saved. Every single sect here now owed him a massive blood debt. Just look at the guy. He was casually tossing out sage inscriptions and unleashing soul transformation strikes like it was nothing. You'd have to have a death wish to antagonize the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion now. At that thought, their envy only deepened into a bitter longing. Usually, disciples rode the coattails of their sect's prestige to strut around the world. For the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, it was exactly the opposite. Up in the air, Fang Chen was outwardly wincing, his heart bleeding at the cost. That black stone carving was his ultimate life-saving artifact. He had been hoarding it for the inner demon diviner, yet here he was, forced to burn it on this battlefield. Thankfully, its destructive power had completely shattered his expectations. It had entirely obliterated the Ice Giant King, leaving the remaining 3 Giant Kings clinging to their final breath. With their remnant souls teetering on the edge of dispersion, at least it wasn't a total waste. He let out a long exhale. Finally, this catastrophic mess was winding down. Once he got back, he was absolutely going to wring the Grand Libationer's neck for some compensation. That old coot was spectacularly unreliable. Last time, the geezer swore that the odds of running into the Wind Giant King, the Space Giant King, or the 5-star Giant King in the Heaven Realm were virtually 0. And what happened? He practically tripped over 2 of them. And now this, opening up a battlefield rigged with this level of apocalyptic danger to the public without even bothering to do a sweep first. As a result, Fang Chen walked right into a breakout attempt by the giant emperor itself, forcing him to burn his priceless sage inscriptions and his trump card soul transformation strike. If that old man didn't cough up some serious compensation, Fang Chen was going to uproot an entire island from the Directorate of Astronomy as payment. Mid-complaint, the crushing millstone suddenly ground to a halt. An invisible, oppressive force slammed down on it, physically stopping it from pulverizing the dying remnant souls of the three giant kings. A second later, the millstone violently detonated without warning, its fragments dissolving into the endless void. The three giant kings had miraculously survived by the skin of their teeth. The sudden turn of events left Fang Chen reeling. What just happened? Had the power of the soul transformation strike simply run out? Or was it? He snapped his head toward the giant emperor, his pupils shrinking to pinpricks. The colossal giant emperor, previously curled into a dormant sphere, had silently raised its monstrous head. A single gargantuan vertical eye, pitch black as the abyss, was staring apathetically at its surroundings. Its sickly purple pupil rotated slowly. It swept its gaze off the three giant kings, drifting chillingly until it locked onto Fang Chen. The moment that gaze touched him, Fang Chen convulsed violently. It felt like a physical battering ram had just plowed straight through his internal organs, setting his very insides quaking in terror. His blood practically boiled over, raging through his veins at breakneck speeds until his skin flushed a furious, raw red. A tearing agony ripped through the nascent soul in his Tianshan, as though that single, lazy glance was trying to crush his cultivation base into dust. It was just a single glance, yet it had casually swatted away a soul transformation strike and nearly killed Fang Chen on the spot. So this was the giant emperor, even bound beneath layers of seals. Even starved and weakened, it still radiated an apocalyptic pressure capable of wiping out all of existence. "Continue," the giant emperor commanded, its voice devoid of any emotion. It was such an ordinary word, yet it carried the heavy, undeniable weight of a cosmic law, as if its very breath dictated the laws of heaven and earth, forcing all living beings to kneel and obey. Taking experts, who had already fled far beyond the void, suddenly turned and began marching back like mindless husks. The three surviving giant kings instantly sprang into action, unleashing their fury upon the fourth ceiling chain. Even the hellish, desolate beast shuffled back obediently, entirely subjugated. Even Fang Chen found his hands moving on their own, hurling attacks at the restraining chains. His mind was screaming in defiance, but his body was hopelessly hijacked by this absolute cosmic law. He was nothing but a passenger in his own flesh. The giant emperor's word was absolute law. It was an edict no one could defy. Watching the chains strain under the collective onslaught, Fang Chen's heart plummeted into an icy abyss. Did we really just fail? But right at that desperate second, the remaining 6 chains sensed the giant emperor's awakening. Erupting with brilliant prismatic light, they wove together into a dazzling, iridescent cage, forcefully suppressing the towering monstrosity within. His authority to command all living beings was instantly severed. Only then did the crowd regain control over their bodies, retreating out of the void. Ecstatic, the hellish desolate beast shouted to the remaining 3 giant kings, "What are you waiting for? Break the chains and save the giant emperor." The 3 near, dead giant kings snapped out of their daze. Having witnessed the whirl-dinding power of the giant emperor, their eyes burned with intense excitement. If they could free the giant emperor, ruling Taikang Grand Province would be effortless. They immediately resumed their relentless assault on the chains. As the 4th chain shattered, the multi-colored mist binding the giant emperor weakened a fraction. Fang Chen gasped. Decisively, he unleashed the soul, shocking spike on the fire giant king. The fire giant king shrieked in agony as its already fading remnant soul took another devastating hit. Yet it stubbornly kept hammering away at the chains. The 5th chain snapped. Anxiety clawed at Fang Chen, but he also saw a glimmer of hope. The giant king's soul was now so weak that a single soul-shocking spike could finish it off. The problem was his own soul power wasn't strong enough yet to deliver the killing blow. With no time to lose, he retrieved the Godspeed Sect Master's spatial storage artifact, and began stuffing the soul mushrooms inside into his mouth, one after another. But eating them one by one was too slow. By the time his soul broke through to the 7-aperture cultivation realm, the chains would already be completely gone. With a sudden thought, he flipped his palm, summoning the mountains and rivers cauldron before him. Can I concentrate these mushrooms? There was no time to second guess. he dumped the entire spatial storage artifacts supply of soul mushrooms into the mountains and rivers cauldron. Channeling his power, the mountains and rivers cauldron immediately began the condensing process. Hundreds of mushrooms liquefied instantly, shrinking and fusing together. After 10 breaths of time, only a single thumb-sized crystal, clear elixir pill remained, radiating an immeasurable torrent of soul power. Swallowing it raw like this was incredibly risky, and Fang Chen might not even survive the impact. But he had no choice. He swallowed it in one gulp. His soul power expanded violently like a balloon on the verge of bursting, breaking through to the 7-aperture nascent soul cultivation realm in the blink of an eye. At that exact moment, the 6th chain shattered, leaving only 3 remaining. The giant emperor's terrifying laws of order began to flicker back to life. We can't let them break any more chains. He aimed at the fire giant king and unleashed another soul, shocking spike. The unprecedentedly powerful soul, shocking spike, left no room for suspense, completely obliterating its remnant soul. The hellish desolate beast was both shocked and enraged. Fang Chen, you bastard, you're dead. They were so close to freeing the giant emperor, only for Fang Chen to ruin it again. Fang Chen didn't have time to deal with him. As the soul power inside him kept swelling, his physical body began to feel bloated and strained. Before long, his soul would grow too powerful for his body, causing him to lose control entirely. He had to quickly eliminate the remaining 2 giant kings' remnant souls, or it would be too late. Without hesitation, he unleashed the soul, shocking spike once again. Panicking, the hellish desolate beast roared, "Supreme Yin Sect Master, you bowed to our heaven realm as a servant. Why aren't you here to save us?" The Supreme Yin Sect Master, who had already retreated outside the void, instantly looked incredibly grim. His worst nightmare had just come true. Back in the Deity Transformation ruins, fear had driven him to submit to the cold mountain giant king. Because of that, he hadn't hesitated to murder Venerable Ironbone to silence him forever. He had been living in constant anxiety lately, terrified that this secret would get out. But he never expected the hellish desolate beast to expose him, especially not in front of everyone. From this moment on, there would be no place left for him in taking Grand Province. Even if he tried to deny it, it would be utterly useless. That was because taking Grand Province was home to Venerable Mantra, who possessed the ability to detect lies. Under his mantra domain, he would be completely exposed. His only option now was to throw in his lot completely with the ancient giants. After weighing his options, he glared at Fang Chen with pure hatred. "It's all because of you. If you, Fang Chen, hadn't pushed the hellish desolate beast to this point, would it have exposed me?" He had lost his status as the Supreme Yin Sect Master and his only sanctuary in the Central Land Realm. It was all Fang Chen's doing. "Why didn't you just die in the Heaven Realm?" the Supreme Yin Sect Master roared. Tapping his own chest, a black afterimage of a 3-eyed evil crow shot out. It streaked toward the water giant king, intercepting Fang Chen's soul, shocking spike just before the giant's soul could be destroyed. Fang Chen was taken aback, his anger truly flaring. "Supreme Yin Sect Master, you're actually using the protective domain Venerable Evil Crow gave you to shield the ancient giants." He had been a hair's breadth away from destroying another giant king's remnant soul, only for the Supreme Yin Sect Master to step in and save the monster. Meanwhile, the remaining 2 giant kings seized the opportunity to shatter the 7th chain. Only 2 chains remained. Fang Chen's expression tightened. Without hesitation, he unleashed another soul, shocking spike. The Supreme Yin Sect Master couldn't let Fang Chen wipe out the giant kings. If they died, who would protect him? Helping the giant emperor break free was his only way to save himself. "Stop right there." The Supreme Yin Sect Master crushed a trump card magical artifact, his body instantly dissolving into a cloud of black mist. A split second later, he used teleportation to appear right behind Fang Chen. He aimed a lethal strike directly at Fang Chen's back, hoping to force him to redirect his soul, shocking spike. Fang Chen didn't flinch. He simply flung his spirit beast pouch behind him to absorb the impact, choosing to take the hit so he could drive his soul, shocking spike straight into the water giant king. Already pushed to his absolute limit, the water giant king's remnant soul was instantly obliterated. But Fang Chen paid a heavy price. The Supreme Yin Sect Master's vicious divine ability tore right through the spirit beast pouch and slammed into Fang Chen. Even though the spirit beast pouch had absorbed the brunt of the attack, the strike was simply too devastating. The residual force tore a bloody hole straight through Fang Chen's back, leaving his beating heart clearly visible. Without the spirit beast pouch, this strike would have blown him to pieces. Fang Chen coughed up a massive spray of blood, stumbling before collapsing to the ground. Eyes burning with venomous rage, the sect master of the Great Yin sect pressed his advantage. Whipping out a bone mallet, a spiritual artifact pulsing with yin kai, and swinging it savagely down at Fang Chen. "Martial uncle, watch out," Xia Keoj shrieked. Biting her lip, she crushed the jade casket, grabbed the holy, glowing feather inside, and pressed it to her chest. In an instant, the ghostly silhouette of pure white wings flared behind her. She threw herself behind Fang Chen, using her own fragile body to shield him from the bone mallet's impact. The illusory wings flickered wildly as they absorbed the devastating force of the weapon. Even so, the residual shockwave sent her, only a 1, aperture nascent soul cultivator, spitting blood as she crashed heavily into Fang Chen. Already injured, how could Xia Keoj possibly survive a direct hit from a 7, aperture nascent soul expert? The wings dissolved into light, her blood staining her robes. Her eyes slipped shut, her fate entirely unknown. Keoj, Fang Chen roared, his heart burning with an intense killing intent. Sect master of the Great Yin sect. In that moment, the old truth echoed in his mind: traitors were infinitely worse than enemies. But now was not the time for vengeance. He unleashed another soul, shocking spike, targeting the last, heavily battered space giant king. The giant was prepared. Channeling the spatial source star between his brows, he managed to dodge the attack just in time. In the same breath, he shattered the 8th chain. Only 1 remained. Fang Chen didn't hesitate. Catching the space giant king in the brief cooldown right after his teleportation, he fired another soul, shocking spike. The sect master of the Great Yin sect's heart leaped into his throat. "You're dead," he shrieked. Brandishing a longsword forged from condensed yin kai, he thrust it savagely towards Xia Keoj and Fang Chen, aiming to impale them both. Just then, a furious booming voice echoed through the air. "Sect master of the Great Yin sect, you are a disgrace to the title of divine sect master." It was the palace lord of myriad tribulations. Executing the shadow in the clouds technique, he flashed forward and blasted the sect master of the Great Yin sect away. The experts from the other sects snapped to their senses, surging forward in a unified wave. The sect master of the Great Yin sect had struck so fast that they hadn't even had time to process it. Nobody could believe it. The sect master of the Great Yin sect, one of the mighty 3 spirits sects, was actually secretly aligned with the ancient giants. Thanks to their rapid response, the chains hadn't been completely severed. Seeing the tide turn, the hellish desolate beast realized the battle was lost. While the sect master of the Great Yin sect drew everyone's attacks, it quietly slipped into the shadows. The sect master of the Great Yin sect stood deathly pale. He clenched his fists, his eyes burning not with regret, but with bitter resentment. He'd been so close, just a hair's breadth from victory. Meanwhile, Fang Chen's soul, shocking spike struck true, flawlessly obliterating the space giant king's remnant soul. He collapsed to the ground, his face contorted in agony. It wasn't from burning out his soul energy, it was the exact opposite. He was overflowing with it. Those soul mushrooms were still pumping out a relentless stream of raw soul energy. If he hadn't burned off a massive chunk of it by spamming the soul shocking spike, the sheer pressure of the soul energy would have literally blown him apart. But the excruciating pain was worth it. The giant emperor had been successfully sealed away. Fighting through the agony, he turned to check on Xia Keoj. A quick scan revealed she was just unconscious, having blacked out from the severe trauma. The heavy knot of anxiety in his chest finally unraveled. They'd all survived. A weary, relieved smile threatened to break across his face. But before he could even utter a sigh of relief, the chilling rattle of chains echoed from behind him. He whipped around and froze dead in his tracks. Bro swallowed a condensed nuke of soul mushrooms just to spam his ultimate. Fang Chen is out here, dropping Deity Transformation, strikes like a P2W whale. But the undisputed clown today is the Great Yin sect master. He sold out his Tao and the entire human race to backstab a kid, only to catch the fattest L. Absolute bozo behavior. Just when Fang Chen thinks he secured the bag and saved Keoj, rattle. That final chain definitely just moved. Settle this below. When Fang Chen survives this, does he just execute the sect master, or is he morally obligated to grind his traitorous nascent soul in the Avasai hell millstone for eternity?